Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was the spider sage, the true totem god of the web of life. Naruto x Gwen Stacy, Marvel Comics. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Threads of Fate. Moonlight filtered through dense foliage, casting web-like shadows across the forest floor. Naruto Uzumaki crouched motionless atop a gnarled branch, his breathing so controlled that not even the most sensitive sensor-type shinobi could detect his presence. 3 years of training under Jiraiya had transformed the once impulsive genin into something altogether different, something even his mentor couldn't quite define. Target moving southeast, Naruto whispered into his communicator, voice barely disturbing the night air. Approximately 2 kilometers from the border. Moving faster than expected. The response came immediately, Shikamaru's measured tone tinged with rare urgency. Intercept only. We need intelligence, not confrontation. This doesn't feel right, Naruto. A smile quirked the corner of Naruto's mouth. When does it ever? He launched himself forward, body flowing between branches with fluid precision. The forest blurred around him, yet every detail remained crystal clear. The subtle shift of nocturnal creatures avoiding his path, the minute changes in air currents against his skin, the almost imperceptible chakra signature he tracked through the wilderness. This heightened awareness had emerged gradually after his return to Konoha, a sensitivity beyond even the most refined shinobi senses. The target, a nondescript courier susp, CTED of carrying classified intel to Otogakure, moved with unusual speed for a civilian. Intelligence had flagged him after 3 known sound operatives had received packets from him in border towns. Night would end his delivery service permanently. Naruto closed the distance methodically, maintaining perfect stealth. Moonlight briefly illuminated the courier's form as he passed through a clearing, average height, civilian clothing. Nondescript in every visible way. Nothing remarkable except for his speed and the fact that no civilian should be traveling these woods at night. The air shifted subtly. Naruto froze mid-leap, an unfamiliar sensation prickling across his skin, like thousands of invisible needles raising the hair on his arms. His vision tunneled momentarily, the world bleeding into slow motion as an overwhelming certainty flooded his consciousness. Danger. Behind. Now. Without conscious thought, Naruto twisted in midair, narrowly avoiding 3 Senbon needles that embed dead into the branch where he would have landed. He caught a higher branch with one hand, swinging himself upward as his eyes sought the attacker. Sensor type, a voice remarked coldly from the shadows. Interesting. Your chakra signature is unusual. A figure materialized on a branch 20 meters away, tall, lean, dressed in standard Otogakure attire but wearing an elaborate mask carved to resemble a spider. 8 stylized eyes glinted in the moonlight, each lens a different color that seemed to shift with the angle. Not a sensor type, Naruto corrected, calculating distances and angles for attack. Just know when someone's trying to put holes in my back. The masked shinobi tilted his head. Uzumaki Naruto, Jinchuriki of the 9 Tails. Your presence confirms our suspicions that Konoha has identified our operation. Unfortunate. Naruto maintained his casual posture despite the adrenaline surging through his system. This wasn't the courier. This was an elite sound shinobi, likely Jonin level or higher. The courier had been bait, and he'd taken it. Your operation involving forbidden techniques and dimensional chakra manipulation? Naruto asked, watching for any reaction. It was a shot in the dark based on fragments of intelligence, but the slight tensing in the masked shinobi's shoulders confirmed he'd hit something impressive. Though I suppose we shouldn't underestimate the Hokage's information network. The masked figure raised a hand slowly. You understand I can't allow you to report back. Bold of you to assume you have a choice, Naruto replied, his tongue elite despite the deadly intent building in his chakra. The attack came with blinding speed, not from the masked shinobi but from 6 different directions simultaneously. Shadow clones, or some variant technique. Naruto perceived each incoming strike not through sight but through that same strange awareness that had warned him earlier, like invisible threads vibrating with approaching danger. He moved instinctively, body flowing between attacks with impossible precision. Each movement segued perfectly into the next. ducking the first attacker, using their momentum to propel himself into a speed that incapacitated two more with rapid strikes to nerve clusters, followed by a vertical leap that placed him above the remaining three. Rasengan. The swirling sphere of chakra illuminated the clearing as Naruto drove it downward. Not into any of the attackers but into the branch beneath them. Wood splintered explosively, disrupting their formation and sending them plummeting toward the forest floor. As they fell, Naruto noted with surprise that they weren't shadow clones, they were actual sound shinobi who had been concealed nearby. The masked figure observed from his perch, unmoving. Fascinating. Your fighting style has evolved considerably from our intelligence reports. Less direct force, more anticipatory movement. Naruto landed on a lower branch, maintaining eye contact with the mask. Maybe your intelligence is outdated. Perhaps. The masked shinobi performed a series of hand signs too rapid to follow. Or perhaps something has awakened in you, Uzumaki Naruto. Something beyond the fox. The air between them distorted visibly, chakra condensing into visible threads that glowed with an unearthly blue-white light. The threads shot toward Naruto with impossible speed, not as weapons, but as sensory probes, he realized with sudden certainty. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Naruto warned, making no move to evade. The chakra threads touched him, and everything changed. Pain erupted through Naruto's nervous system, not from the enemy's technique but from something within him responding. His vision fractured into kaleidoscopic patterns, each fragment showing different angles of the forest simultaneously. The masked shinobi appeared in each shard, but from impossible perspectives, above, below, from weeks in the past and moments in the future. What is this? The masked figure demanded, voice strained as the chakra threads connecting them began to pulse with red-gold energy flowing back toward him. This isn't the Nine Tails chakra. Naruto couldn't answer. Couldn't think past the overwhelming sensory input flooding his consciousness. The world expanded around him, forest melting away to reveal gossamer strands stretching in all directions, a vast, infinite web connecting everything. Each intersection pulsed with information, awareness, possibility. He saw Konoha, but also strange cities with towering glass structures, worlds where the sky burned perpetual crimson. Realities where chakra had never existed. The masked shinobi screamed, the sound distorted as if coming through water. The mask cracked down the middle, revealing a face contorted in agony as golden red energy consumed the chakra threads and began climbing up his arms. With tremendous effort, Naruto severed the connection, collapsing to his knees on the branch. Reality reasserted itself gradually, the infinite web fading from his perception until only faint traces remained at the edges of his vision. The masked shinobi lay crumpled on a distant branch, body smoking slightly. Mask shattered to reveal an unremarkable face now frozen in an expression of terror. Naruto, respond. Shikamaru's voice crackled through the communicator, tinged with rare panic. We detected a massive chakra spike. Status report. Naruto raised a trembling hand to his communicator. I'm alive. Enemy neutralized. Something happened, Shikamaru. Something I can't explain. Return to the rendezvous immediately. The courier was captured by Team 8. Whatever you encountered wasn't part of the original intelligence. Understood. Naruto stood shakily, looking down at his hands. Fine golden red lines traced patterns beneath his skin, following his chakra pathways but forming unfamiliar geometric designs. As he watched, they faded slowly, sinking beneath the surface but not disappearing entirely. He could still feel them, humming with potential. The journey back to the rendezvous point passed in a blur of motion and fragmented thoughts. Naruto moved on autopilot, mind replaying the encounter and the impossible visions that followed. The web he'd seen wasn't genjutsu or hallucination, it had felt more real than reality itself, as if he'd briefly perceived the true end. A tour of existence beneath the surface world. Shikamaru waited alone at the designated location, expression grave in the pre-dawn light. The others have already transported the courier back to Konoha. You look like hell. Feel worse, Naruto admitted, dropping to sit on a fallen log. I encountered a sound Jonin, at least Jonin level. Used some kind of chakra thread technique I've never seen before. And when it touched me. Naruto hesitated, struggling to articulate the experience. Something responded inside me, not the Nine Tails, something else. Something that's apparently been dormant until now. Shikamaru's eyes narrowed. Orochimaru's experiments often involved dormant Kekkei Genkai activation. Could be related to your Uzumaki lineage. Maybe. Naruto wasn't convinced. The feeling had been too vast. Too cosmic to be merely bloodline related. The sound ninja didn't survive the encounter. You killed him. Not exactly. Whatever power activated in me, it flowed back through his technique. Like his chakra threads created a conduit between us, but the energy went the wrong direction. Naruto rubbed his temples, fighting a building headache. He just burned out. Shikamaru was silent for a long moment, calculating possibilities with his typical methodical precision. We need to get you back to Konoha. Lady Tsunade needs to examine you immediately. Agreed. Naruto nodded, standing with effort. But Shikamaru, whatever this is, I don't think it's a threat. It felt familiar somehow. Like it's always been part of me, just waiting for the right moment. That's what concerns me, Shikamaru replied, already moving toward Konoha. The right moment, coinciding with an encounter with advanced sound techniques, is rarely coincidental. The Hokage's office smelled of medicinal herbs, sake, and old scrolls, a combination Naruto had come to associate with bad news and difficult missions. Tsunade studied him with clinical intensity, Daikel chakra flowing from her hands as she completed her examination. Physically, you're fine, she concluded, stepping back with a frown. Better than fine, actually. Your chakra pathways show unprecedented development and efficiency. Whatever happened in that forest, it optimized your entire system. Naruto shifted uncomfortably under her scrutiny. But I've never seen anything like He's secondary pathways forming throughout your body. Tsunade gestured to a diagram she'd sketched during the examination. Naruto's standard chakra network overlaid with an intricate geometric pattern resembling a spider's web. They're not replacing your normal chakra system, they're integrating with it, enhancing it. Almost like a perfect symbiosis. Shizune, who had been silently observing from the corner, approached with a thick, ancient-looking scroll. Lady Tsunade, I found a reference that might be relevant. It's from the restricted section, dating back to before the founding of the hidden villages. Tsunade unrolled the scroll carefully, eyes widening as she scanned its contents. This can't be. She looked up at Naruto with an expression he couldn't interpret. Naruto, have you ever heard of the spider sages? He shook his head. Like the toad sages of Mount Myoboku. Similar concept, vastly different implementation, Tsunade replied, turning the scroll so he could see. Illustrations depicting humanoid figures with chakra systems resembling what was developing in his body. The spider sages were thought to be mythological, chakra users who could perceive and manipulate what they called the Great Web, supposedly a network connecting all living things across all dimensions. Dimensions, Shikamaru interrupted, leaning forward with sudden interest. The sound Shin Obi mentioned dimensional chakra manipulation. Tsunade nodded grimly. According to legend, the spider sages could travel between realities using the Great Web as a conduit. They were said to possess precognitive abilities, perfect kinesthetic awareness, and heightened sensory perception beyond normal human capacity. The description matched exactly what Naruto had experienced in the forest. So I'm becoming one of these spider sages. Possibly, Tsunade replied cautiously. But the scrolls indicate that spider sages were chosen and trained from birth. There's no record of someone spontaneously developing these abilities in adulthood. Shizune cleared her throat gently. There is the matter of the 9 tails, Lady Tsunade. No previous spider sage was a Jinchuriki. Good point. Tsunade turned back to Naruto. Has the fox said anything about this? Naruto closed his eyes, focusing inward toward the familiar presence of the 9 tails. Unlike usual, when he had to fight through layers of resistance and hostility to communicate with the Biju, he found Kurama alert and waiting, crimson eyes fixed on him with unusual intensity. So you've finally awakened to it, the fox rumbled. Voice resonating through Naruto's consciousness. I wondered when this would happen. You knew about this? Naruto demanded internally. Not precisely, Kurama admitted, rising to his full height behind the seal. But I sensed it from the beginning, another power sleeping within you, separate from my chakra. Something old. Something that recognized something in me. What do you mean, recognized? The fox's expression shifted to something almost contemplative. Biju exist partially outside normal dimensions, Kit. Were fragments of the 10 tails, which itself wasn't originally of this world. Whatever power you're manifesting, it resonates with that aspect of my nature. It's been feeding on our connection for years, growing stronger. Naruto opened his eyes, meeting Tsunade's expectant gaze. The 9 tails says he's known something was there all along. Something that resonates with the Biju's extra-dimensional nature. Tsunade and Shizune exchanged alarmed looks. Extra-dimensional, Tsunade repeated. Before Naruto could elaborate, the office door burst open. A breathless Chunin stumbled in, face pale with shock. Lady Hokage, emergency in the central district. Some kind of, he struggled for words, hands gesturing helplessly, hole in the air. People are reporting strange lights and impossible images. Anbu has established a perimeter, but it's growing larger. Tsunade was on her feet instantly. Shizune, alert all available Jonin. Shikamaru, coordinate evacuation of the surrounding blocks. She fixed Naruto with a penetrating stare. You're with me. If this is connected to what's happening to you, I want you there. They reached the central district in minutes, bounding across rooftops with urgent speed. Naruto felt it before he saw it, a familiar resonance pulsing through those new pathways beneath his skin, drawing him forward like a compass pointing north. The hole in the air was a grotesquely inadequate description. Suspended 3 meters above the street floated a perfect circle of nothingness, not darkness but an absence, as if that portion of reality had been precisely excised. Around its edges, the air shimmered with prismatic energy. Occasional lightning-like discharges arcing to nearby buildings. A crowd of shinobi maintained a wary perimeter around the phenomenon. Kakashi stood at the forefront, Sharingan exposed and fixed on the anomaly. Dimensional breach, he reported as Tsunade and Naruto landed beside him. Stable for now, but expanding approximately 1 centimeter every 3 minutes. Not a technique, at least. Not one I can copy or disrupt. Any idea what's on the other side? Tsunade demanded, medical chakra already gathering around her hands in preparation for potential casualties. Glimpses only, Kakashi replied, never taking his eyes from the rift. A city, but like none I've ever seen. Massive structures of glass and steel. Strange vehicles. No visible shinobi, but definitely people. Naruto stepped forward, drawn by an irresistible pull. The new pathways throughout his body hummed with energy, resonating with the breach as if in greeting. Naruto, stay back, Tsunade ordered sharply. I can feel it, he said quietly, raising a hand toward the anomaly. It's calling to me. The golden red lines reappeared beneath his skin, glowing visibly now. As they brightened, the prismatic energy around the breach synchronized, pulsing with the same rhythm as the pathways in his body. It's responding to him, Kakashi observed, tension evident in his normally composed voice. Before anyone could react further, the breach pulsed brightly, once, twice, 3 times, each flash accompanied by a sound like reality itself tearing. On the 3rd pulse, something shot through the opening with explosive force, impacting the street with enough power to crater the cobblestones. Dust billowed outward, obscuring the impact site momentarily before a gust of wind cleared it away, revealing a crouched figure in a skin-tight black and white costume with a hood. A feminine form, lithe and coiled with potential energy. The hood featured stylized eyes reminiscent of the masked sound shinobi. And as the figure straightened, Naruto saw an emblem on her chest, a white spider. Well, said a distinctly feminine voice from behind the mask, accent unlike anything Naruto had heard before. That was a rougher trip than advertised. She surveyed the assembled shinobi with a casual confidence that suggested she faced down groups of superpowered strangers regularly. When her gaze reached Naruto, she paused, head tilting slightly. You're not supposed to be here, she said, pointing directly at him. You're resonating with the wrong frequency entirely. Interesting. Who are you? Tsunade demanded, stepping forward with authority radiating from her stance. The masked woman rolled her shoulders casually. Spider-Woman, where I come from, though that probably means nothing to you. Gwen Stacy, if we're getting personal, which we're not. She gestured at the dimensional breach floating above them. More importantly, did a man in a seriously tacky green suit come through here before me? Scales, electrical implants, answers to Electro, or Max, or Hey, Sparky. The bewildered expressions around her answered that question. Gwen sighed audibly. Great, so he's running loose in. She glanced around at the distinctly feudal Japanese architecture mixed with more modern elements, whatever alternate reality this is. Just perfect. Alternate reality? Kakashi questioned, Sharingan still analyzing her every movement. Different dimension, parallel universe, whatever terminology works for you, Gwen replied with a dismissive wave. Look, I don't have time for the you're in another world exposition dump. There's a homicidal electrical metahuman on the loose who can absorb power from any electrical source, and judging by those power lines, you've got electricity to make him a serious problem. Naruto stepped forward, the glowing lines beneath his skin responding to her presence. How did you get here? For the first time, Gwen seemed unsettled. She looked more carefully at Naruto, focusing on the golden red patterns visible through his skin. You're a totem, she said, surprise evident in her voice. But not from my world. How is that possible? Totem, Naruto repeated. Spider totem, Gwen clarified, approaching him cautiously. Someone connected to the web of life. But you're different. Your connection isn't like mine or Peter's or any totem I've encountered. The name meant nothing to Naruto, but the reference to the web of life sent a jolt of recognition through him, connecting to what he'd experienced in the fours. And what Tsunade had read from the ancient scroll. I think I'm what this world calls a spider sage, he offered tentatively. Gwen's mask revealed nothing, but her posture indicated surprise. Spider sage. That's a new one. She reached out a hand hesitantly. May I? Naruto looked to Tsunade, who gave a reluctant nod. He extended his arm toward Gwen, the patterns beneath his skin brightening as her gloved fingers approached. When she touched him, the connection was instant and electric. The world around them seemed to fade as the web materialized in their shared perception, infinite strands stretching across dimensions. Pulsing with cosmic energy. Through this momentary connection, Naruto glimpsed fragments of Gwen's world, towering skyscrapers, advanced technology, costumed figures with impossible abilities. Threats beyond comprehension. Gwen jerked her hand back, breaking the connection. Holy shit, she breathed, voice shaken. You're not just connected to the web. You're like a nexus point. I've never felt anything like that. The dimensional breach pulsed violently, expanding a full meter in an instant. Lightning-like energy crackled around its edges, striking nearby buildings and sending civilians running in panic. It's destabilizing, Gwen said urgently. Our connection must have accelerated the process. This is bad. If the breach collapses while fully destabilized, it could take out half this city. Quote, can you close it? Kakashi asked, already directing Anbu to evacuate the area. Not alone, Gwen replied, turning to Naruto. But maybe with his help. Spider Sage, you up for a crash course in multiversal mechanics? Naruto felt the Nine Tails chakra stirring within him, responding to his heightened emotions. What do I need to do? First, Gwen said, mask somehow conveying her grim smile, we find Electro before he causes even more problems. Then we stabilize this breach long enough for me to drag him back to our dimension and close it properly. Simple, Naruto replied with a hint of his old sarcasm. Never is, Gwen agreed, shooting a web line to a nearby building with a flick of her wrist. You coming, Spider Sage? Or do you need to clear it with your boss first? The challenge in her voice was unmistakable. Naruto looked to Tsunade, who appeared torn between scientific curiosity and protective instinct. Go, the Hokage finally said. But stay in communication. If this visitor isn't being truthful about the threat, I want to know immediately. Naruto nodded, then turned back to Gwen. I don't move like you do. I don't have those web things. Don't you? Gwen asked, pointing to his hands. Naruto looked down to see the golden red lines extending beyond his skin now, forming gossamer threads connecting to the dimensional breach. He concentrated on the sensation, focusing chakra through these new pathways, and watched in amazement as the threads responded, extending, strengthening, becoming tangible. Well, that's different, Gwen commented. My webs are artificial. Yours seem organic, chakra-based. I'm guessing, based on the energy readings I'm picking up. You can read chakra signatures? Kakashi asked sharply. No idea what a chakra signature is, Gwen replied honestly, but my mask has multispectral analysis capabilities. Your energy patterns are unlike anything in my database. She turned back to Naruto. Ready to test those threads, Spider Sage. Without waiting for a response, she launched herself upward, swinging gracefully from her web line to land atop a nearby building. The movement was fluid, precise, and displayed a lifetime of practiced skill. Naruto focused on the golden red threads extending from his hands, channeling chakra into them as he would for a jutsu. The threads responded instantly, shooting outward to connect with the same building. Instinctively, he pulled himself forward, body responding with unexpected grace as he swung through the air and landed beside Gwen. Not bad for a first try, she commented, genuine appreciation in her voice. You've got good instincts. This feels. Naruto searched for the right word, natural. Like I've always known how to do it, just never tried. That's how it works for most totems, Gwen confirmed, already moving toward the edge of the building. The abilities are instinctual, part of your connection to the web. Follow me, and try to keep up. First stop. Highest point in your village. Need to get a better view of where our electric friend might be headed. She leapt from the building, form graceful as S. He shot another web line and swung in a wide arc above the streets of Konoha. Naruto followed, his body responding with increasing confidence to this new mode of movement. Each swing felt more natural than the last, his perception sharpening to calculate angles and momentum automatically. They reached the Hokage monument in minutes, landing atop the carved visage of the fourth Hokage. Naruto experienced a moment of vertigo standing atop his father's stone likeness, a connection to his past while embodying something entirely new. Gwen crouched at the edge, mask lenses adjusting as she scanned the village. Your dimension is weird, she commented. Medieval architecture but with modern power infrastructure. No cars but advanced communications technology. It's like someone blended feudal Japan with the 21st century. I don't know what most of those references mean, Naruto admitted, but this is normal for us. We've developed along different lines than your world. Clearly. Gwen pointed toward the village's power station near the eastern wall. There. That's where I'd go if I were a living electrical capacitor looking to power up. As if summoned by her words, a massive explosion erupted from the indicated location. Blue-white electrical energy fountained into the evening sky, forming a humanoid shape briefly before dispersing into arcs of lightning that struck buildings across the village. Called it. Gwen sighed, already launching herself toward the disturbance. Come on, Spider Sage. Time for your first interdimensional team-up. Naruto followed, golden red thread, extending from his hands with increasing control. They swung through Konoha at breathtaking speed, covering ground faster than even elite Jonin could track. As they approached the power station, Naruto noticed his perception changing again, time seeming to slow as his awareness expanded to encompass everything around them in perfect detail. Do you feel that? He called to Gwen, who swung several meters ahead. Feel what? She called back, voice carrying clearly despite the distance and wind. Like everything's connected. Like you can sense danger before it happens. Gwen laughed, the sound surprisingly warm. That's the spider sense, rookie. One of the perks of the package. Saves your life about 20 times a day. As they neared the power station, Naruto's newly awakened spider sense flared powerfully. Without conscious thought, he altered his trajectory, tackling Gwen mid-swing and carrying them both behind a water tower as a massive lightning bolt obliterated their previous position. Nice save, Gwen acknowledged as they crouched behind the metal structure. Your spider sense is already calibrated. Took me weeks to stop reacting to every minor threat. I think it's working with my ninja training. Naruto theorized. I was already trained to detect killing intent and anticipate attacks. Ninja training, Gwen repeated flatly. Of course, because this dimension wasn't weird enough already. From their position, they could see the source of the attack, a man, or something approximating a man, composed entirely of crackling blue-white energy. He floated above the destroyed power station, absorbing streams of electricity from the damaged infrastructure. Electro, Gwen confirmed grimly. He's absorbed this world's electrical frequency already. Not good. What does that mean? Naruto asked, studying their opponent carefully. It means he's adapted to your dimension's energy signature. Makes him harder to contain with standard methods. She glanced at Naruto speculatively. Though maybe not so standard in your case. What can you do besides the web threads? Naruto considered the question, mentally cataloging his abilities. Chakra-based techniques, wind manipulation, energy constructs, shadow clones, enhanced strength and healing, and, he hesitated, I have another source of power. Something potentially dangerous. The Nine Tails Kurama, mentioned in your head during our connection. Gwen asked casually. Naruto stared at her in shock. You saw that. Multiversal connections go deep, she shrugged. I caught glimpses of your memories, same as you probably caught mine. Giant fox spirit sealed inside you, right? Compared to some totems of Met, that's almost normal. Before Naruto could respond, their cover disintegrated, the chair tower melting into superheated steam as Electro directed a concentrated beam of energy at their position. Found you, Spider-Woman. The electrical entity called, voice distorted by crackling power. This world has such primitive but potent energy sources. I'll be unstoppable once I've absorbed them all. That's our cue, Gwen said, launching into motion. Distract him while I get close enough to attach the dimensional anchor. She swung in a wide arc around Electro, drawing his attention with practiced ease. Naruto created a dozen shadow clones instantly, each manifesting the same goal. Red threads as they spread out to surround the electrical villain from multiple angles. Electro laughed, the sound like power lines in a storm. More of you to fry. He discharged massive lightning bolts at the approaching clones, dispersing 3 immediately. Naruto felt each clone's destruction as a momentary flash of feedback, and something more. Each dispersed clone seemed to strengthen his connection to the web, the golden red patterns beneath his skin pulsing brighter with each sacrifice. The clones, he realized aloud. They're feeding back into the web connection. Gwen, Dajin, G electrical blasts with impossible agility, called back. That's new. Use it. Naruto created 20 more clones, directing them to engage Electro from all directions. As each was destroyed by electrical discharges, Naruto channeled the feedback into the web connection, feeling the power building within him like a gathering storm. Electro grew increasingly frustrated as Gwen evaded his every attack, her movements precise and seemingly prescient. Stand still, you annoying insect. Arachnid. Gwen corrected automatically, flipping through a barrage of electrical bolts. Seriously, how do supervillains still get this wrong? She landed on a nearby roof, extracting a small device from a concealed pocket in her costume. Spider Sage, I need 30 seconds to calibrate this to your dimension's frequency. On it, Naruto called back, concentrating on the accumulated energy from his destroyed clones. Following pure instinct, he extended his hands toward Electro, golden red threads showing forth in a complex 3-dimensional pattern. The threads passed through Electro's electrical form, seemingly ineffective, until they began to glow with an inner light. Where they intersected, He created nodes of concentrated energy, forming a web-like cage around the villain. What is this? Electro demanded, discharging massive amounts of electricity against the golden red threads. To his evident shock, the energy was absorbed into the web, strengthening it further. I think, Naruto said, surprise coloring his own voice, I'm using your own energy signature against you. The web adapts. Gwen launched herself toward the now contained Electro, device in hand. Perfect. Keep him stabilized. Maintaining the web cage required intense concentration. Naruto felt sweat beading on his forehead as he struggled to contain the furious electrical entity. The golden red patterns beneath his skin had spread across his entire body now, glowing brightly enough to illuminate the darkening evening around them. Gwen reached Electro, slapping the small device against the web cage. It adhered instantly, lights blinking as it synchronized with the dimensional energies. Anchor planted, she called triumphantly. Now we need to get him back to the breach before. The device sparked violently, circuits overloading as Electro channeled power directly into it. Nice try, Spider-Woman. But I've learned a few tricks since our last encounter. The anchor exploded, the shockwave throwing Gwen backward. She twisted midair, firing a web line to catch herself, but Electro directed a PR. Precision blast that severed the line before it connected. She plummeted toward the ground, too far from any structure to shoot another web in time. Naruto reacted instantly, the golden red threads X'd, ending from his body with impossible speed. They caught Gwen 20 meters from impact, forming a cradle that absorbed her momentum before depositing her safely on a nearby rooftop. "Thanks for the save," she called, already back on her feet. "But we've got a problem. The anchor was our best shot at containing him long enough to get back through the breach." Electro laughed maniacally, gathering power for another assault. The web cage Naruto had created was beginning to degrade, unable to contain the villain's increasing energy output. "I'm not going back," Electro declared. "This world is perfect. Primitive energy systems with no heroes to stop me. I'll become a god here." Naruto felt something shift within him, a resonance between his chakra, the Nine Tails power, and this new web connection. The golden red patterns across his skin pulsed in perfect synchronization with his heartbeat. "There's another way," he said, voice steady despite the strain. "If I can't contain him with the web alone, maybe I can with something more." He closed his eyes briefly, focusing inward. "Kurama, I need your help." The Nine Tails consciousness stirred immediately. "Interesting time to ask, Kit. What exactly are you planning?" "The web connects to your extra-dimensional nature, you said so yourself. If I channel your chakra through these new pathways, it might create a stable dimensional anchor using me as the power source, ***, Kurama finished, understanding immediately. "Risky. Potentially catastrophic. I like it." Naruto opened his eyes, now shining with a combination of Kurama's crimson energy and the golden red light of the web connection. "Gwen, I need you to get Electro back to the breach. I'll handle the anchor." Gwen studied him for a moment, mask hiding her expression but her posture conveying understanding. "You sure about this? Mixing powers can get messy." "No," Naruto admitted with a half-smile. "But it feels right. Good enough for me," she replied, launching back into action. "Try not to blow up your dimension while I'm still in it." She engaged Electro directly, her movements faster and more precise than before, as if she'd been holding back initially. Each dodge was calculated to draw him incrementally toward the central district where the dimensional breach awaited. Naruto began channeling the Nine Tails chakra, the familiar crimson energy emerging to intertwine with the golden red patterns of the web connection. Where they merged, a new energy formed, deep amber with threads of obsidian, pulsing with power that felt ancient and primal. "This connection," Kurama rumbled inside him, voice tinged with something like awe. "It's older than the Sage of Six Paths. Older than the 10 Tails itself." The combined energies flowed through Naruto's body. Painful but exhilarating, he directed this new power toward Electro, the amber-black threads moving with conscious purpose rather than pure instinct. They formed not a CAGE but a harness, each strand attaching to specific points in the villain's electrical matrix. "What are you doing?" Electro demanded, trying and failing to break free of these new constraints. "This isn't spider power." "No," Naruto agreed, voice resonating with dual energies. "It's something else, something new." With a sharp gesture, Naruto pulled, not physically but dimensionally, creating a tether between Electro and the breach. The electrical villain found himself being dragged inexorably toward the central district, despite his struggles and power discharges. "Impossible," he raged. "No spider totem has this kind of power." Quote, "I'm not just a spider totem," Naruto replied, maintaining the connection despite the strain burning through his system. "I'm the spider sage, and this is my world to protect." The statement felt right as he spoke it, an acknowledgement of something that had always been true but only now revealed. The Nine Tails chakra responded to his conviction, strengthening the dimensional tether further. Gwen swung alongside the restrained Electro, expression unreadable behind her mask but body language suggesting impressed surprise. "Whatever you're doing, it's working. Keep it up." They reached the central district in minutes, the dimensional breach still floating above the evacuated street. It had expanded significantly, now nearly 5 meters in diameter. The prismatic energies around its edges flaring with increased instability. Tsunade, Kakashi, and dozens of Konoha shinobi maintained positions around the anomaly, prepared for whatever might emerge next. When they saw Naruto, Gwen, and the captive Electro approaching, they tensed visibly. "Stand back," Naruto called, the amber-black energy surrounding him in a visible aura. "We need to get him through the breach." Tsunade signaled the shinobi to clear a path, eyes widening at Naruto's transformed appearance. The golden-red patterns had spread beyond his skin, forming a luminous exoskull. Reminiscent of both the Nine Tails chakra cloak and a stylized spider. Gwen landed beside the breach, extracting a second device from her costume. "The anchor failed, but I have a recall beacon. If we can force him through, I can trigger the dimensional collapse from this side." "He won't go willingly," Naruto observed, maintaining his hold on the struggling Electro. "They never do," Gwen agreed cheerfully. "That's the fun part." Quote, she fired a web line directly into the breach, the material vanishing into the nothingness. After a moment's tension, the line went taut. She was connected to something on the other side. "Now," she called, yanking the line with all her strength. Naruto simultaneously pushed with his dimensional tether, using the combined power of Kurama and the web con. Action to force Electro toward the breach. The electrical villain fought desperately, discharging massive amounts of energy in all directions. "I won't go back," Electro screamed, his form expanding with absorbed power. "I'll destroy this entire village first." He gathered his remaining energy for one cataclysmic discharge, a final, desperate gambit to break free. Naruto felt the imminent attack through his spider sense, the danger prickling across his consciousness with crystal clarity. In that moment of perfect awareness, Naruto made his decision. Instead of continuing to push Electro toward the breach, he launched himself forward, amber-black energy surrounding him like armor. He tackled the electrical entity directly, his enhanced form protecting him from immediate disintegration as they both tumbled toward the dimensional opening. "Naruto," Tsunade's voice called from behind him, alarm and command in equal measure. "It's the only way," he called back, struggling to contain Electro's thrashing form. "The breach needs to be closed from both sides." As they reached the edge of the breach, Naruto locked eyes with Gwen through her mask. Understanding passed between them in an instant, a connection forged through the web that transcended their brief acquaintance. "I'll find you again, Spider Sage," she promised, activating the recall beacon. "The web connects us all." Naru, to an Electro plunged through the breach together, the sensation like falling through liquid glass, painful, disorienting, impossible to describe in terms of normal physical experience. The last thing Naruto saw of his world was Gwen's mask, lenses reflecting the amber-black energy that surrounded him as the breach began to collapse. Then, nothingness, followed by a cacophony of sensations as they emerged on the other side. Gwen Stacy had seen many strange things since becoming Spider-Woman, but watching the dimensional breach collapse after Naruto and Electro disappeared through it ranked among the most troubling. The recall beacon had worked as designed, triggering the controlled collapse of the interdimensional corridor, but it had taken the Spider Sage with it. "Will he survive?" asked the blonde woman who'd been introduced as the Hokage, her voice maintaining professional calm despite evident concern. "If anyone could survive interdimensional travel without proper equipment, it's him," Gwen replied honestly. "His connection to the web is unlike anything I've encountered. Almost as if he's not just connected to it but embodies some fundamental aspect of it." The silver-haired man with the covered eye, Kakashi, studied her with unnerving intensity. "You speak as if this web is sentient." "Not sentient exactly," Gwen corrected, choosing her words carefully. "More like a fundamental force of the multiverse that has something resembling consciousness. The totems, people like me with spider powers, are connected to it, but we're just users. Your Naruto seems different, like he's part of the web itself." "The Spider Sage scrolls," Tsunade murmured thoughtfully. "They described the Great Web as the consciousness of existence itself, perceiving and connecting all realities simultaneously." Gwen nodded, the description resonating with her own experiences. "That tracks with what we understand. In my world, we have entities called the Master Weaver and Madam Web who oversee aspects of this cosmic force. But they're custodians, not embodiments." "And Naruto?" Shikamaru asked, speaking for the first time since the breach collapsed. Gwen considered the question carefully, recalling the brief but profound connection she'd experienced when touching Naruto's arm. the glimpse into powers and possibilities beyond even her understanding of the multiverse. "I think," she said finally, "he might be something new. Or perhaps something very, very old that's been forgotten." She looked up at the space where the breach had been, now just empty evening air. "Either way, this isn't the end of his story. The web doesn't abandon its own." "You sound certain he'll return," Kakashi observed. Gwen smiled beneath her mask, though none could see it. "I've learned one thing about the multiverse. Masked Ninja Man, it loves balance. If your Spider Sage is what I suspect he might be, the web itself will find a way to bring him home." She paused, considering. Though, home, might become a more complicated concept for him now that he's aware of other dimensions. Tsunade stepped forward, authority radiating from her stance. "Until he returns, we need to understand what happened here. This web of life, and its connection to our world, particularly to Naruto, cannot be ignored or dismissed." "I agree," Gwen said, surprising herself with the admission. "Which is why I think I should stick around for a while." "You can stay in this dimension voluntarily?" Shikamaru asked skeptically. "Not indefinitely," Gwen admitted, "but longer than most. My particular connection to the web grants me certain flexibilities when it comes to dimensional travel." She gestured to where the breach had been. "That corridor may be closed, but the connection point remains. I can sense it, and so could your Spider Sage. It's like a scar in reality, healed but marked." "And what exactly would you do while sticking around?" Tsunade asked, suspicion evident in her tone. Gwen crossed her arms, considering her answer carefully. The unexpected development of a Spider Sage in this dimension had implications beyond just Naruto's personal journey. If the web was established, shing a stronger presence in this reality, other forces might follow, some considerably less friendly than herself. "I'll help you understand what's happening to your world and to Naruto," she replied finally. "In return, you help me understand how this dimension developed spider totems through a completely different evolutionary path than my universe." Fair exchange of information. Tsunade studied her for a long moment before nodding curtly. "Acceptable terms, provided you submit to certain security protocols while in Konoha." "Reasonable," Gwen agreed, though fair warning, spider people are notoriously difficult to contain if they decide not to be contained. The hint of a smile touched Tsunade's lips. "So are ninja. I believe we'll manage to establish mutual respect without resorting to containment measures." As they negotiated the details of her temporary residence in Konoha, Gwen found her thoughts returning to Naruto, the unexpected Spider Sage from a world of ninja. Their brief connection had revealed a complex individual carrying burdens few could understand, yet maintaining an essential optimism she found refreshingly familiar. Somewhere across the dimensions, she knew, he was finding his way in her world, probably causing the same kind of bewildered reactions she was experiencing here. The thought made her smile beneath her mask. The multiverse had just become considerably more interesting. And the web of life, that cosmic force connecting all spider totems across all realities, had gained something unprecedented, a sage who could perceive its true nature. The implications were vast and impossible to predict. One thing seemed certain, however, neither world would be quite the same again. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Webs Between Worlds. New York City assaulted Naruto's senses with merciless intensity. Skyscrapers stretched skyward like kunai aimed at the heavens. Mechanical monsters, cars, he'd quickly learned, roared through concrete canyons. Light poured from everywhere. Screens larger than the Hokage monument flashed with impossible images, storefronts blazed with artificial day, and handheld devices illuminated thousands of downturned faces. Perched atop a water tower 20 stories above the street, Naruto closed his eyes. 3 days in this world and the sensory overload still threatened to drown him. His newly enhanced perception, a gift or RSE from his awakening connection to the web of life, transformed the city into an overwhelming tapestry of information. He could feel vibrations from subway trains beneath the streets, taste pollution particles in the air. Hear conversations from blocks away. Disorienting, isn't it? Kurama rumbled within his consciousness. This world moves at an unnatural pace. It's not the pace, Naruto replied internally. It's the disconnection. These people have incredible technology but barely acknowledge each other's existence. The fox's amusement rippled through their shared mental space. Says the boy who spent his childhood being ignored by an entire village. That was different. Naruto opened his eyes, scanning the horizon where Manhattan's skyline glittered against the evening sky. In Konoha, being ignored was personal. Here, it's systematic. Everyone is alone together. He flexed his fingers, golden red energy threads materializing between them. The web connecti-on had only strengthened since his arrival in this dimension, the patterns beneath his skin now visible even without channeling chakra. According to the hastily established psychic link between worlds, Gwen called this Earth 65, one of countless parallel realities connected through the cosmic web. An unexpected vibration from his pocket interrupted his contemplation. Naruto extracted the sleek rectangular device, a smartphone, provided by this world's Peter Parker, and examined the screen. Any progress with your dimensional GPS? Meeting at 8. Bring bagels. Asterisk. Naruto smiled despite himself. Pete R. Parker, this world's original spider totem before Gwen received her powers, approached interdimensional crises with the same casual attitude Naruto once approached D-rank missions. The device still felt unnatural in his hands, but he'd mastered the basic functionality within hours of receiving it. Making progress. Still can't create stable anchor points. Will bring bagels. What are bagels? Asterisk. The response came immediately. You poor, deprived ninja. The round bread things from that shop on 83 Road. The everything ones. Asterisk. Tucking the device away, Naruto rose to his feet. The amber black energy had resulted from combining his nine tails chakra with the web connection materialized around him, forming a partial exoskeleton visible only to those attuned to dimensional energies. He'd learned to modulate this manifestation, making it nearly imperceptible to ordinary humans while maintaining its protective properties. With practiced ease, he extended golden red threads from his wrists, attaching them to a distant building before launching himself into the open air. The sensation of swinging between skyscrapers, body suspended hundreds of feet above concrete by threads of his own creation, had become almost meditative. Here, above the chaos, he could think. Electro had been contained within hours of their arrival, Peter and his allies having prepared for his return. The electrical villain now resided in a specialized containment facility called the Raft, his powers dampened by technology Naruto could barely comprehend. With that immediate threat neutralized, focus had shifted to Naruto's unexpected presence and the implications of a spider sage emerging from another dimension. Wind rushed past his face as he arced between buildings, each movement increasingly natural. Unlike Gwen's mechanical web shooters, Naruto's threads came directly from his chakra network, modified by the web connection into something neither purely physical nor purely energy-based. He could feel each thread as an extension of himself, alive with sensory feedback. His spider sense flared suddenly, not danger but recognition. Another spider totem approached from the east, moving with distinctive grace through the urban canyons. Miles Morales, the third spider person Naruto had met in this world, swung alongside him, his black and red costume distinctive against the evening sky. You're getting better at this, Miles called, executing a perfect somersault between web lines. Took me weeks to get comfortable with mid-air transitions. Naruto shrugged mid-swing. Different physics in my world, but similar principles. Tree hopping isn't that different from web swinging if you understand momentum. They landed simultaneously atop a Gothic-style gargoyle, crouching as naturally as if perched on a tree branch. Miles pulled his mask up to reveal a young face marked with the serious expression of someone who'd grown up too quickly. Any luck with your tracking ability? Peter's been analyzing the dimensional frequency patterns, but we're still missing something fundamental about how you connected to our world. Naruto raised his hand, amber black energy condensing to form a miniature three-dimensional model of overlapping realities, a technique he developed by combining his shadow clone jutsu's mental manipulation with the web's dimensional perception. I can sense 7 distinct connections, he explained, indicating points where glowing lines intersected. Earth 65 is the strongest, which makes sense since it's where I am physically. My home dimension is second strongest, I assume is due to my natural resonance with it. Miles studied the construct with scientific interest. At 17, he was younger than Naruto but possessed a brilliant mind specifically attuned to dimensional mechanics. What about these other 5 connections? They're weaker but definitely present. Unknown, Naruto admitted, dispersing the energy model. But they're getting stronger. Every day I spend here, my awareness of the web expands. It's like, he struggled to find the right words, like I've always been capable of this perception but never had it activated until now. Miles nodded thoughtfully. Peter has a theory about that. He thinks certain dimensions have natural resonance with each other, like harmonic frequencies. Your world and ours might be harmonic pairs, which would explain why your powers manifested when our dimensions began bleeding into each other. The explanation made intuitive sense to Naruto, though the scientific terminology remained foreign. In his world, such phenomena would be described through chakra theory and natural energy circulation rather than quantum physics. We should get moving, Miles said, pulling his mask back down. Peter gets cranky when the bagels are late. Quote, they traversed the city with fluid efficiency, Naruto pausing only to purchase the mysterious bagels from a shop where the owner greeted Miles by name despite his costume. The normalcy with which this world treated its superhuman population remained disorienting. In Konoha, shinobi were respected but separate, their abilities setting them apart from civilians. Here, extraordinary abilities seemed almost commonplace, with costume figures appearing on magazine covers and children wearing merchandise bearing their emblems. The meeting location, an Aban domed clock tower converted into what Peter called a spider cave, loomed ahead, its weathered stonework contrasting with the sleek modernity surrounding it. They entered through a window near the massive clock face, landing silently on the wooden floor inside. The space contained an improbable mixture of cutting-edge technology and comfortable furniture, laboratory equipment sharing space with RN couches and a refrigerator covered in magnets. Peter hunched over a workbench, his lanky form illuminated by multiple screens displaying incomprehensible data patterns. The dimensional travelers return, he announced without looking up. Please tell me those are Steinman's bagels and not those imposters from the chain store. Authentic New York bagels, Miles confirmed, tossing the bag onto a clear section of the workbench. Though I still think Montreal bagels are superior. Heresy, Peter muttered, abandoning his work to investigate the food. He glanced at Naruto, eyes narrowing analytically. You're manifesting more clearly today. The energy patterns around your chakra network are starting to stabilize. Naruto had learned that Peter Parker possessed unique perceptive ability. Even among spider totems, he could see energy signatures invisible to normal vision. A side effect, he'd explained, of dying and returning to life through the Great Web itself. I can feel the difference, Naruto acknowledged. The connection is becoming more deliberate, less reactive. I can direct it now, rather than just responding to it. Peter nodded, distributing bagels with methodical precision. That tracks with the readings. Your quantum signature is harmonizing with our dimensional frequency without losing your native pattern. It's unprecedented. Everything about Spider Sage here is unprecedented. Came a familiar female voice from the stairwell. Gwen Stacy, or rather, a psychic projection of her, climbed into view, her translucent form glitching occasionally. The interdimensional psychic link is holding. But we've got significant developments on this side that couldn't wait for the scheduled communication. Naruto stepped forward, relief washing through him at seeing a connection to home. Is everyone okay? Has there been another breach? The projection of Gwen stabilized, her expression serious beneath her partially raised mask. No new breaches, but we've discovered something you need to see. The Hyuga girl, Hinata, her eyes have evolved somehow. She can see the web, Naruto. Not just sense it like you do, but literally see its structure. Miles and Peter exchanged significant looks. That shouldn't be possible without a direct connection to the web, Miles noted. Even Madame Web needs her specialized equipment to visualize it directly. Apparently Byakugan doesn't care about what should be possible, Gwen's projection replied. From what I understand, her visual abilities already operated on principles that defy conventional physics. This seems to be an extension of that, triggered by exposure to your transformed chakra before you came through the breach. Naruto felt a complex mixture of emotions at this news, concern for Hinata, fascination with this development. and something deeper he couldn't immediately identify. Is she all right? This kind of perception can be overwhelming. Gwen's projection flickered briefly. She's handling it better than anyone expected. Actually, she's the one who found the hidden chamber beneath Konoha, a repository of ancient scrolls describing something called the Spider Council. These scrolls contain information about the web of life dating back thousands of years, including prophecies about a spider sage who would serve as the human embodiment of the web itself. Peter whistled low. Well, that's not ominous at all. Ancient prophecies about our ninja friend here. I was hoping for a simple multiversal anomaly we could patch up with some dimensional duct tape. When is it ever simple? Miles sighed. Leaning against the workbench, Naruto remained focused on Gwen's projection. What exactly do these scrolls say about the spider sage? The projection glitched momentarily before stabilizing. That's the thing. They're written in a language even your Hokage can't fully translate. Parts are in ancient Uzumaki script, apparently, which makes you particularly interesting to them. Hinata see and read portions by perceiving the chakra patterns embedded in the scrolls, but it's incomplete. They want you back there to examine them personally. Not happening until we establish a stable dimensional corridor, Peter interjected. After what happened with Electro, punching more holes between worlds without proper containment protocols would be catastrophically irresponsible. Gwen's projection turned toward him. Hence my presence at this little gathering. Tsunade and I have been working on something that might help. A synchronized chakra focusing technique that could potentially stabilize a connection point from our side. Quote, using what energy source? Miles asked. Creating stable interdimensional corridors requires power on the scale of a small nuclear reactor. The projection smiled thinly. Turns out chakra, particularly Nine-Tails chakra, has interesting properties when focused through certain crystalline structures. We've modified something called chakra transfer crystals to amplify and direct the energy. Naruto recognized the reference immediately. Those crystals are extremely rare and dangerous. Even small amounts can cause catastrophic chakra disruption if improperly handled. Which is why we're proceeding with appropriate caution, Gwen assured him. But we need coordination from both sides. According to Hinata's perception of the web, there's a natural junction point between our dimensions, what she describes as a thinning in the barriers separating our worlds. Peter had already begun typing furiously on a keyboard, screens around him displaying new data patterns. That tracks with my readings. There's a localized dimensional frequency anomaly centered on Roosevelt Island. The barrier between worlds is approximately 63% thinner there than anywhere else in the city. Roosevelt Island, Miles questioned. That's where the abandoned smallpox hospital is located, the one that's supposedly haunted. Not haunted, Peter corrected absently, still analyzing data. Just experiencing temporal echoes due to dimensional instability. Though I suppose ghosts is a simpler explanation for the general public. Naruto looked between them, impatience building. So we have a location on this side and presumably one on your side as well. He asked Gwen's projection. She nodded. The land of whirlpools, your ancestral homeland, apparently. Specifically, a location called the Uzushio Nexus, where the original Uzumaki clan performed their sealing ceremonies. According to the scrolls, it was chosen precisely because of its thin dimensional boundaries. The information struck Naruto with unexpected force. The land of whirlpools, homeland of the Uzumaki clan, destroyed before he was born, had always been a phantom presence in his life, Menti. One in passing but never truly explored. That his connection to the web would lead back to his ancestral roots seemed significant beyond coincidence. How soon can we attempt this synchronization? He asked. Decision already made. Peter glanced up from his screens. With proper preparation, 12 hours minimum. We need to calculate exact dimensional coordinates, establish proper shielding protocols, and calibrate energy outputs to prevent cascade failures. And we need to gather a proper team, Miles added. If something goes wrong, we'll need specialized abilities to contain any breaches. Gwen's projection flickered more severely. The connection is degrading. We'll begin preparations on our side. 12 hours from now. Synchronize your watches for 8:15 p.m. tomorrow, Eastern Standard Time. As the projection faded, Naruto caught a final glimpse of Gwen's expression. a mixture of scientific determination and something more personal, a concern that transcended professional interest. Then she was gone, leaving only the faint scent of ozone in the air. "Well," Peter said into the ensuing silence, "looks like we're on a deadline. Again. Remind me why we do this instead of pursuing normal hobbies like stamp collecting or competitive baking." Miles snorted. "Because we'd get bored within a week and end up experimenting with radioactive stamps or something equally dangerous." Naruto remained silent, processing the implications of what he'd learned. Hinata could see the web of life directly. Ancient scrolls predicted his existence as the Spider Sage. His ancestral homeland contained a natural dimensional junction point. Each revelation felt like another thread being woven into a pattern he couldn't yet discern but instinctively recognized as significant. "You've gone quiet, sage boy," Peter observed, interrupting his thoughts. "Care to share with the class?" Naruto met his gaze directly. "I'm not just connecting to the web," he said slowly, voicing the realization as it formed. "I'm reconnecting to it. These abilities, this perception, it feels like remembering something I've always known, not learning something new." Peter's expression shifted from casual to intensely focused. "That aligns with certain theories about the nature of totemic connections. Some believe the Great Weaver selects its avatars across the multiverse based on soul resonance patterns established at the creation of the web itself." In English, Miles requested. "The web might have chosen Naruto before he was born," Peter translated. "Before any of us were born. The question is, why now? Why this specific convergence of dimensions?" No one had an answer, but Naruto felt the question resonate within him like a struck bell. Why now, indeed? What cosmic alignment had triggered this awakening? And what purpose did it serve in the greater pattern of the multiverse? The golden red lines beneath his skin pulsed gently, as if acknowledging the question without providing an answer. Hinata Hyuga knelt before the ancient scrolls, Byakugan activated, perceiving layers of reality invisible to normal vision. The underground chamber beneath Konoha's restricted archives had remained hidden for centuries. Its entrance sealed with blood techniques requiring Uzumaki chakra to unlock. It had been her eyes, her evolved perception, that had detected the subtle dimensional anomaly IEs surrounding the seemingly solid wall. Now, 3 days after Naruto's disappearance through the dimensional breach, she studied the Spider Council's legacy with single-minded focus. The physical scrolls themselves were impressive. Parchment created from materials that didn't quite match any known substance, ink that seemed to shift and move when observed through her Byakugan. But it was the information contained within that truly astonished. "Can you still read it?" Tsunade asked from behind her, voice hushed in the ancient space. The Hokage had barely left the chamber since its discovery, dividing her time between studying the scrolls and coordinating with Gwen Stacy on dimensional communication efforts. "Yes," Hinata confirmed, not looking up from the intricate patterns dancing before her enhanced vision. "The characters remain consistent when I channel chakra to my eyes in the specific pattern you developed." What she couldn't easily explain was how she read the information. The scrolls contained traditional written language, a complex mixture of ancient Uzumaki script and older symbols predating the hidden village system, but superimposed over this visible text was a ice of chakra pathways forming multidimensional patterns. These patterns conveyed information directly to her consciousness when properly perceived, bypassing normal reading comprehension entirely. Quote, "This section describes the Spider Sage's purpose," she continued, fingers tracing lines invisible to normal sight. "It says, the sage stands at the center of the great web, neither controlling nor controlled, but existing in perfect harmony with its infinite complexity. Through the sage, the web maintains equilibrium across dimensions that would otherwise drift into chaos or convergence." Tsunade made notes on a separate scroll, documenting everything Hinata perceived. "That suggests a regulatory function rather than merely a passive connection. If Naruto truly is this sage, he may have abilities beyond what we've witnessed." Hinata nodded absently, attention caught by a new pattern emerging as she shifted her perception deeper. "There's more here, something about the fox." Tsunade straightened immediately. "The 9 tails, it's specifically mentioned." "Not directly," Hinata qualified, struggling to interpret the complex information flowing into her consciousness. "It refers to the guardian beast of dimensional boundaries, and describes a symbiotic relationship with the sage. The beast provides anchor points, stable reference coordinates within the dimensional flux. She blinked, momentarily overwhelmed by the information. Since her Byakugan had evolved following exposure to Naruto's transformed chakra, her perception had expanded beyond anything in Hyuga clan records. She could see chakra as before, but now perceived it as part of a greater energy system extending beyond physical reality, threads of connection spanning outward into dimensions her mind couldn't fully comprehend. That corresponds with what we witnessed during the Electro incident, Tsunade noted. When Naruto combined the Nine Tails chakra with his web connection, it created a stable tether between dimensions. There's something else, Hinata said, perception shifting again as new patterns revealed themselves. A warning about the devourer of totems who hungers for the sage's power. It's described as ancient, patient, and relentless, existing to consume the energy of those connected to the web. Morlun, came Gwen's voice from the chamber entrance. The dimension traveler leaned against the stone doorway, costume replaced with borrowed civilian clothes that somehow looked perfectly natural on her despite their unfamiliar style. Are one of the inheritors. They're a family of interdimensional vampires who feed on the life force of spider totems. They've been hunting us across the multiverse for centuries. Tsunade regarded her with the wary respect that had Charaktiri. Zed their interactions since her arrival. You didn't mention these predators before. Because I didn't think they could access your dimension, Gwen replied, approaching to examine the scrolls herself. The chakra network that powers your world creates a distinctive energy signature that should be unpalatable to them. But if these scrolls specifically mention them, it says the devourer will sense the sage's awakening across all dimensions, Hinata continued, reading directly from the chakra patterns. That the spider sage represents the ultimate feast, a direct connection to the web itself rather than merely a conduit. The implications hung heavily in the ancient air. If Naruto's awakening as the spider sage had alerted these interdimensional predators to his existence, he faced angers beyond anything previously encountered, dangers that might follow him across dimensions. We need to accelerate our timetable, Tsunade decided, rolling up her documentation scroll with swift precision. If these inheritors can track Naruto between dimensions, we need to establish secure communication and transportation methods immediately. Gwen nodded grimly. I've been coordinating with Peter and Miles on their side. They've identified a natural junction point at a location called Roosevelt Island. We need to synchronize our efforts to create a stable corridor rather than the uncontrolled breach Electro created. The Uzushio Nexus, Hinata said suddenly, attention caught by a new pattern emerging from the scrolls. That's where we need to perform the synchronization from our side. It's described here as the sacred junction where reality's fabric wears thinnest, where the Uzumaki Guardians maintained the dimensional boundaries. Tsunade frowned. The land of whirlpools was destroyed decades ago. The island itself remains, but its largely uninhabited ruins patrolled by dangerous whirlpool currents. Accessing the nexus won't be simple. But not impossible, came Kamaru's voice as he entered the chamber, expression serious despite his characteristically relaxed posture. I've completed the historical analysis you requested, Lady Tsunade. The Uzushio Nexus app, ours in multiple classified reports from the first Hokage's era. It was considered a site of significant strategic importance during the founding of the Hidden Village system. What kind of strategic importance? Gwen asked, her scientific curiosity evident. Shikamaru extracted a weathered document from his vest. According to these records, the Uzumaki clan served as dimensional guardians long before the Hidden Village system was established. The Nexus was their primary monitoring station, a location where they could detect and prevent incursions from other realities. Which explains why he first Hokage insisted on alliance with the Uzumaki clan specifically, Tsunade murmured, connecting historical dots previously obscured. It wasn't just their sealing techniques he valued, it was their role as dimensional guardians. Hinata continued studying the scrolls, finding confirmation of Shikamaru's information within the chakra patterns. The scrolls describe a ceremonial chamber beneath the primary Uzushio temple, containing a device called the Web Anchor, apparently designed to stabilize connections between specific dimensions. If that device still exists, Gwen noted, it ULD provide exactly the stable reference point we need for synchronized dimensional connection. A significant if, Shikamaru cautioned. Uzushio was thoroughly destroyed during the Second Shinobi War. Most of its knowledge and technology was lost. Not lost, Hinata corrected softly, perception deepening as she channeled more chakra to her evolved Byakugan. Hidden, protected. The scroll's eye indicate the Uzumaki clan anticipated their destruction and took measures to preserve their most important knowledge and artifacts. She traced the complex pattern revealing itself to her enhanced vision. The web anchor was sealed beneath the primary temple using a blood lock technique keyed specifically to the Uzumaki lineage. Only someone carrying Uzumaki blood can access it. Naruto, Tsunade concluded, or potentially myself, through my grandmother Mito Uzumaki. The blood connection would be stronger with Naruto, Shikamaru observed, especially considering his apparent role as the Spider Sage. Gwen had been unusually quiet, studying the scrolls with intense concentration despite being unable to read them directly. These scrolls, she said finally. How old are they? At least 1,000 years, Tsunade estimated. Possibly much older, based on the materials and preservation techniques. And they specifically predict Naruto's existence. Gwen pressed, expression troubled. 1,000 years ago, someone knew enough about the web of life to predict the emergence of a spider sage with Uzumaki blood who would connect to a guardian beast with dimensional properties. The question hung in the ancient air, its implications unsettling. Either the scrolls represented genuine prophetic knowledge spanning millennia, or someone with extraordinary understanding of both dimensions in the future had deliberately planted this information for them to find. Neither possibility was comforting. Regardless of their origin, Tsunade said pragmatically, the scrolls contain information we need. If the Uzushio Nexus can help us establish stable contact with Naruto and potentially return him safely, we must pursue that option. Agreed, Shikamaru nodded. I've already assembled a team for the mission. Hinata's evolved Byakugan makes her essential. I've also selected Sakura for medical support, Sai for aerial reconnaissance, and Kakashi to lead. Add me to that list, Gwen stated rather than requested. My knowledge of dimensional mechanics and the web of life will be crucial if we encounter any unexpected phenomena. Tsunade studied her briefly before nodding. Logical. Your combat abilities would also prove valuable if these inheritors make an appearance. What about you, Lady Tsunade? Hinata asked, finally deactivating her Byakugan and blinking as the world resolved back into normal vision. I'll coordinate from Konoha, the Hokage decided. If the Uzumaki blood lock requires my presence, I can be transported there quickly via Katsuyu. In the meantime, I'll continue researching these scrolls with the translation team. As the others discussed logistics, Hinata found herself drawn back to a specific section of the primary scroll, a passage she hadn't mentioned to the others. It described the Spider Sage not merely as a guardian or conduit but as something more profound, the human heart of the Great Web itself, through whom all dimensional threads find their center. The description resonated with her understanding of Naruto on a level that transcended his role as Jinchuriki or even as the prophesied child of destiny. If these scrolls were correct, his connection to the web of life wasn't accidental or incidental, it was fundamental to his very existence, perhaps even preceding his birth. And her own evolved vision, this unprecedented extension of the Byakugan. The scrolls had mentioned that as well, describing the eyes that see beyond seeing, as the natural complement to the sage's awareness, perception balanced against sensation, observation against intuition. She hadn't shared this information yet, unsure of its implications for her personal connection to Naruto and the greater crisis they faced. But as preparation for the Uzushio mission accelerated around her, Hinata couldn't escape the feeling that these ancient patterns were reasserting themselves, that roles established at the very creation of the Great We were being reclaimed by their designated bearers, including her own. Roosevelt Island stretched beneath the Queensboro Bridge like an afterthought of geography, neither fully part of Manhattan nor Queens but existing in the liminal space between. Naruto found its isolation oddly comforting after days of sensory overload in the heart of New York City. Even the abandoned smallpox hospital, a Gothic ruin of crumbling stone and empty windows, seemed peaceful compared to Times Square's relentless stimulation. Creepy but appropriate, Peter commented as their small team approached the I-dated structure under cover of darkness. Dimensional boundary work always seems to happen in places with horror movie aesthetics. Never a nice beach or luxury hotel. The architecture actually serves a purpose. Jessica Drew, another spider totem Peter had recruited for the mission, observed. Older structures built with natural materials have fewer electromagnetic signatures to distort dimensional frequencies. Modern buildings are essentially signal jammers for this kind of work. Naruto had met Jessica only hours earlier but already appreciated her pragmatic approach. Unlike the other spider totems who approached dimensional travel with either scientific fascination or resignation, she viewed it with the calculated assessment of an intelligence operative evaluating mission parameters. The thinning is strongest near the northern wall, Miles reported, specialized goggles displaying data invisible to normal sight. Dimensional frequency variance is approaching optimal parameters for synchronized connection. Their small team had spent hours preparing for this attempt at controlled dimensional connection. Peter had assembled specialized equipment designed to measure, contain, and stabilize interdimensional energies. Miles had modified his bioelectric abilities to serve as a power regulator if necessary. Jessica had brought containment devices developed by S.H.I.E.L.D. for extra-dimensional incursions. And Naruto had spent the time in deep meditation, working with Kurama to refine their combined energy output. The fox had proven surprisingly cooperative, his millennia of existence giving him perspectives on dimensional boundaries that even Peter's scientific knowledge couldn't match. The veil between worlds has always been thinner than humans realize, Kurama had explained during their preparation. Before your kind developed civilization, beings crossed between dimensions regularly. The barriers strengthened over time, but certain locations, nexus points, retained their permeable nature. Now, standing before the crumbling hospital as evening deepened into night, Naruto could feel the truth of Kurama's words. The barrier between dimensions felt gossamer thin here, requiring only the proper resonance to part like a curtain rather than tear like the violent breach Electro had created. "It's almost time," Peter announced, checking a specialized watch synchronized across dimensions. T-5 minutes to the coordination window. Everyone to your positions. They had arranged themselves in a precise geometric pattern around the area Miles had identified as the thinnest point, a seemingly unremarkable section of crumbling wall covered in decades of ivy. Peter stood at the western point with his monitoring equipment, Miles at the eastern point prepared to regulate energy flow. Jessica at the southern point with containment devices ready, and Naruto at the northern point directly before the dimensional thinning. "Remember," Peter called from his position. "This is a controlled connection, not a full breach. We're establishing communication and potentially small-scale transport, not opening a doorway large enough for physical passage. If energy levels spike beyond parameters, we abort immediately." Naruto nodded, settling into a meditative posture. The golden-red patterns beneath his skin brightened as he connected more deeply with the web. Ambient light casting strange shadows across the ruins. He could feel the other spider totems responding to his energy signature, their own connections to the web resonating in harmony with his deeper bond. "1 minute," Peter announced, voice tight with concentration. Naruto closed his eyes, focusing inward. "Kurama, I need your help for this." The Nine Tails consciousness rose to meet his. Crimson energy flowing through their shared mindscape. "Unlike last time, we'll be directing the energy purposefully rather than reactively. It will require precise control. Precision has never been my strength," Naruto admitted, the old self-deprecation feeling strangely nostalgic. Kurama's rumbling chuckle echoed through their connection. "Perhaps not traditionally. But why? Our connection to the web provides natural regulation that even I can't match. Trust that connection, Kit. It knows what we're trying to accomplish." 30 seconds passed in focused silence, each participant preparing in their own way for the synchronized attempt. When Peter finally called, "Now," Naruto was already moving, fingers forming seals unknown to traditional ninjutsu, body responding to knowledge flowing directly from his web connection. Golden red energy spiraled outward from his form, intertwining with Kurama's crimson chakra to form the amber-black patterns that had manifested during the Electro incident. This time, however, the energy moved with deliberate purpose rather than reactive desperation. It extended toward the thinning point in the dimensional barrier, not teary. but gently pressing against it like fingers testing the surface of a pond. On the other side, presumably at the exact same moment, the team at the Uzushio Nexus would be performing their own synchronized technique. Naruto could almost feel them: Hinata's evolved perception, Gwen's dimensional experience, the unique chakra signatures of his fellow shinobi, all focused on creating a bridge between worlds. The barrier responded to their combined efforts, rippling visibly as if underwater. Unlike the violent breach that had brought Gwen to Konoha, this disturbance maintained perfect equilibrium. Energy flowing equally in both directions, maintaining balance rather than disrupting it. "It's working," Peter called, excitement breaking through his scientific detachment. Dimensional resonance, achieving stability at 84% synchronization. The rippling intensified, colors impossible to describe flowing across the surface of reality itself. Through this prismatic disturbance, shapes began to materialize, indistinct at first, then resolving into recognizable forms. Not physical presences but something between hologram and spiritual projection. Hinata appeared first, her form translucent but distinct. Byakugan activated and glowing with unusual intensity. She stood within what appeared to be an ancient stone chamber, concentric circles carved into the floor beneath her feet. Around her, materialized the others: Gwen in her Spider-Woman costume, Kakashi with Sharingan exposed, Shikamaru maintaining a hand seal Naruto didn't recognize, Sakura channeling medical chakra through a crystalline structure, and Sai supporting her with his own distinctive energy. Connection established, Kakashi's projection announced, voice distorted but intelligible. Dimensional synchronization holding at acceptable parameters. Confirmed, Peter replied, monitoring equipment displaying stable readings. Two-way communication achieved without barrier deterioration. Outstanding work, everyone. Naruto maintained his focus on the energy flow, ensuring the connection remained balanced. Unlike the chaotic breach created by Electro, this controlled window between dimensions exerted minimal stress on the surrounding reality. He could feel both worlds simultaneously now, the distinct energy signatures of Earth-65 and the shinobi world existing in temporary harmony. "Naruto," Hinata's projection addressed him directly, her evolved Byakugan perceiving him with perfect clarity despite the dimensional separation. "Can you see the anchor point?" He hadn't known what she meant until she mentioned it, but with her words, his perception shifted. Beyond the visible projections of the Konoha team, he could now perceive a structure behind them, a massive crystalline device embedded in the chamber floor, glowing with ancient chakra patterns that perfectly mirrored the golden-red energy flowing through his own body. "The web anchor," he breathed, understanding instinctively. "It's still intact." Gwen's projection nodded. "Activated using Uzumaki blood, specifically yours, extracted from medical samples before your departure. The anchor recognized your chakra signature instantly. The Devik was created specifically for the Spider Sage," Hinata explained, her Byakugan perceiving connections invisible to the others. "It's not just technology, it's a living extension of the web itself, cultivated by your ancestors to maintain dimensional stability." The revelation should have been shocking, but Naruto found himself accepting it with strange calmness. Something about the web anchor felt intimately familiar, as if he'd known of its existence all along but simply forgotten until this moment. "We've discovered more in the Spider Council scrolls," Kakashi's projection continued. "Your connection to the web of life wasn't accidental, Naruto. The Uzumaki clan has served as guardians of dimensional boundaries for thousands of years, with each generation producing potential sages." Quote, "The Nine Tails attack during your birth wasn't coincidence either," Shikamaru added, always focused on connecting seemingly disparate information. "According to the scrolls, the dimensional thinning occurs cyclically every several generations. Your father didn't just seal the fox in you because you were his son, he did it because Uzumaki blood combined with the fox's dimensional nature creates the necessary conditions for a spider sage to awaken." The implications staggered Naruto despite his growing acceptance of his role. His entire existence, from his parentage to the Nine Tails sealing to his development as a shinobi, had been part of a pattern established millennia before his birth. "This doesn't change who you are," Hinata said softly, somehow perceiving his internal turmoil. "It simply reveals more about why you've always been special, Naruto. Your heart, your determination, your ability to connect with others, Those qualities made you the perfect vessel for this power, not the other way around. Her words steadied him, providing anchor against the cosmic revelations threatening to overwhelm his sense of identity. He focused on her form specifically, noticing details his NCED perception revealed. The complex energy patterns flowing through her evolved Byakugan, the subtle connection between her chakra network and his own, the golden red threads extending from his body, naturally reaching toward her across dimensions. The scrolls mention your eyes, he said, following intuition rather than conscious thought. They're part of this too, aren't they? Hinata hesitated briefly before nodding. They call it the eyes that see beyond seeing, a compliment to the spider sage's awareness. Where you sense the web through instinct and connection, I perceive its structure directly. Cosmic balance, Peter murmured from his monitoring station. Intuitive understanding balanced by analytical perception. The web creating natural counterweights. Something shifted in He-dimensional window, a momentary fluctuation that sent ripples across the connection. The projections wavered briefly before stabilizing, but the disturbance left an unsettled feeling in its wake. Something's wrong, Miles called, his bioelectric senses detecting changes before the monitoring equipment registered them. There's a secondary resonance pattern emerging within the connection. Kakashi's projection tensed visibly. We're detecting it here as well. Something is attempting to use our established connection as a pathway. Naruto's spider sense flared suddenly, not the generalized awareness of danger but a specific, directed warning. Something was approaching through the dimensional corridor they'd created, something ancient and hungry that set every instinct screaming in alarm. Close the connection, he shouted, already moving to disrupt the energy pattern. Something's coming through. Peter began emergency shutdown procedures while Miles redirected his bioelectric ENRGY to destabilize the dimensional window. On the other side, the Konoha team similarly worked to sever the connection, but their efforts came too late. A hand, pale, unnaturally elongated, with fingers that terminated in talons rather than nails, thrust through the dimensional window. It didn't emerge as a projection but as solid matter, tearing through reality with casual strength that defied the careful balance they'd established. Inheritor, Jessica shouted in recognition, already deploying containment devices. Full breach protocol, now. The hand withdrew momentarily before the entire dimensional window bulged outward, reality stretching like fabric under impossible pressure. Through this distortion emerged a figure that embodied predatory elegance, tall, aristocratic features beneath bone-white hair. Dressed in anachronistic clothing that seemed to belong to multiple historical periods simultaneously. His eyes, however, destroyed any impression of humanity, solid black orbs with crimson irises that fixed on Naruto with unmistakable hunger. Spider Sage, the figure pronounced in a voice that seemed to echo from multiple throats simultaneously. The totem of totems. I have waited centuries for one such as you to emerge. Morlun, Peter identified, voice tight with controlled fear. Primary inheritor, oldest of their kind. Naruto stepped forward, amber black energy manifesting as armor around his form. You're not welcome here, Devourer. Return to your own dimension. Morlun smiled, the expression devoid of warmth or mercy. My dimension. I exist in all dimensions, little sage. I am as eternal as the web itself. Perhaps more so, for I shall remain when the last strand has been consumed. Through their still open connection, Naruto could see the Konoha team preparing defensive measures. Hinata's Byakugan blazed with intensity as she tracked Morlun's energy signature. Gwen had moved into a combat stance, experience with the inheritors evident in her focused preparation. The connection works both ways, Naruto realized suddenly. If he came through to our side, we can go through to yours. Miles completed the thought, already moving toward the dimensional window. No, Kakashi's projection warned. The connection is destabilizing. Passing physical matter through in either direction could cause catastrophic collapse. Morlun observed their exchange with predatory amusement. Such concern for dimensional stability. Yet you fail to understand the fundamental truth. The barriers between worlds are weakening naturally. My presence here is merely opportunistic. He moved with blinding speed, crossing the distance to Naruto in a heartbeat. Only the spider sense's advance warning allowed Naruto to evade the attack, a precise strike aimed no T at his body but at the golden red energy patterns visible beneath his skin. Your connection to the web is unlike any I've encountered, Morlun observed, circling with predatory patience. Not mere, a totem drawing power from the great web, but a nexus point through which the web itself manifests. Consuming you will provide sustenance for millennia. The other spider totems had engaged instant. TLY. Jessica firing bioelectric stingers that Morlun casually deflected, Miles attempting to flank with his camouflage ability, Peter deploying specialized equipment designed to contain interdimensional entities. None seemed to concern the inheritor, his attention fixed solely on Naruto. Through the dimensional window, Hinata called out, "Naruto. The web anchor is responding to the inheritor's presence. It's attempting to establish a containment protocol, but needs your conscious connection to activate." Naruto had no idea what this meant practically, but trusted Hinata's perception implicitly. He focused on the visible image of the ancient device, extending his awareness toward it across dimensions. The golden red patterns beneath his skin brightened in response, creating a visual echo of the geometric patterns carved into the chamber floor around the web anchor. Morlun noticed this connection forming and moved with renewed urgency, attacking with methodical precision. Each strike targeted specific nodes in Naruto's energy network, points where the web connection intersected with his chakra pathways. The attacks weren't meant to kill but to sever his connection to the web itself. "Your ancestors created impressive technology," Morlun commented between strikes, his fighting style elegant despite its lethal intent. The Uzumaki were among the few humans who understood the true nature of dimensional boundaries. Their containment methods for beings like myself were troublesome. Naruto defended primarily through evasion, the combined awareness of his spider sense and Shinobi training allowing him to anticipate and avoid the precisely targeted attacks. He needed time for the connection with the web anchor to strengthen, time for his allies to implement whatever containment strategy they were developing on both sides of the dimensional window. "You speak as if you've encountered my clan before," Naruto observed, maintaining dialogue to buy that precious time. Morlun's smile widened, revealing teeth too sharp for human anatomy. "Many times, across many centuries. The Uzumaki dimensional guardians were persistent adversaries, until I arranged for their elimination." The casual admission struck Naruto like a physical blow. "You destroyed Uzushio." "Not personally," Morlun corrected with aristocratic precision. "I merely ensured certain nations became aware of their dimensional technology and the threat it posed. Human fear and greed accomplished the rest quite efficiently." Rage burned through Naruto's veins, not just his own but Kurama's as well. The fox responding to this revelation with ancient fury. The golden red patterns beneath his skin darkened momentarily as crimson chakra surged through his system. "Control, Kit, ***, Kurama warned internally. His kind feed on emotional energy as much as the web's power. Don't give him what he wants. With tremendous effort, Naruto contained his anger, redirecting it into the connection with the web anchor. Through the dimensional window, he could see the ancient device responding, concentric circles beginning to rotate in alternating directions, chakra patterns brightening to match his own. "Now, Hinata," he called, instinctively knowing the moment had arrived. Her Byakugan flared with extraordinary intensity as she formed a sequence of hand seals unlike any traditional jutsu. Dimensional boundary technique, Inheritor's prison. The web anchor released a pulse of energy that traveled through the dimensional window like a shock wave. It passed through Naruto without effect but struck Morlun with visible impact, momentarily disrupting his perfect composure. The energy coalesced around the Inheritor, forming geometric patterns that matched those carved into the chamber floor. "Amusing," Morlun commented, though his expression had lost its confident amusement. "You think ancient Uzumaki sealing techniques can contain one who has existed since the web's creation?" "Not alone," Peter called, activating devices positioned around the dimensional window, but combined with 21st century dimensional containment technology. That's a different equation. The devices hummed to life, creating a secondary energy field that interacted with the Uzumaki sealing technique. Where the patterns overlapped, reality itself seemed to solidify around Morlun, restricting his movement with increasing effectiveness. "Dimensional anchor points establishing," Miles reported, monitoring readings from his position. Containment field at 63% stability and rising. Morland's expression shifted from confidence to calculation. Impressive coordination between worlds. The Spider Sage's influence already creates stronger connections than should be possible at this stage of awakening. He tested the containment field with casual strength, assessing its limitations. Unfortunately for you, I did not survive millennia by taking unnecessary risks. With a precise motion too fast for normal perception, Morland extracted a small object from within his clothing, a crystalline device that pulsed with malevolent energy. Before anyone could react, he activated it, creating a localized distortion within the larger dimensional window. "Until we meet again, Spider Sage," he said, stepping into this secondary portal. "And we will meet again, once you've fully awakened to your power and provide a truly satisfying feast." The localized distortion collapsed as soon as he passed through it, leaving the primary dimensional window intact but significantly destabilized. Alarms blared from Peter's monitoring equipment as energy levels fluctuated wildly. "The connection's collapsing," Peter shouted, attempting to implement emergency stabilization protocols. The secondary breach compromised the synchronized frequencies. Through the increasingly unstable window, Kakashi's projection called out, "We're losing connection integrity on our side as well. The web anchor is overloading from the inheritor's interference." Naruto maintained his focus on the golden-red energy still connecting him to the ancient device across dimensions. Despite the deteriorating connection, he could feel the web anchor responding to his efforts, attempting to re-establish stability. "We need to sever the connection cleanly before it collapses catastrophically," Jessica advised. Her experience with interdimensional phenomena evident in her assessment. "A controlled shutdown rather than a breach collapse. Can we do that with the current instability?" Miles asked. CTRIC energy crackling around his hands as he attempted to regulate the fluctuating energies. "We have to try," Peter decided grimly. "Naruto, can you communicate with the team on the other side? We need synchronized shutdown procedures." Naruto nodded, focusing on maintaining the tenuous connection. "Kakashi-sensei, we need to close the connection from both sides simultaneously." The silver I read Jonan's projection wavered but held long enough for him to respond. "Understood. Hinata believes the web anchor can implement a clean severance if you direct it properly." "How?" Naruto called back, feeling the connection deteriorating with each passing second. Hinata's projection stabilized briefly, her Byakugan perceiving pathways invisible to others. "Focus on the central node of the anchor. Direct your energy through the primary connection point, then withdraw it completely on my signal." Despite never having seen the web anchor before today, Naruto instinctively understood what she meant. The ancient device's structure revealed itself to his perception, not just its physical form but its energetic architecture, the product of Uzumaki sealing techniques refined over centuries specifically for dimensional manipulation. He directed his awareness toward the central node Hinata had indicated, feeling the resonance strengthen as he connected with it across dimensions. The golden, red patterns beneath his skin aligned perfectly with the geometric arrangements of the anchor, creating a synchronized energy circuit. "Ready on this side," Peter confirmed, monitoring equipment reconfigured for controlled shutdown. "Ready here," Kakashi's projection acknowledged, the Konoha team positioned around the web anchor in precise formation. Hinata met Naruto's gaze across dimensions, her evolved Byakugan perceiving him with perfect clarity despite the deteriorating connection. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Naruto withdrew his energy from the central node in a single controlled movement, simultaneously severing all secondary connections to the dimensional window. The other spider totems implemented their shutdown protocols with perfect synchronization, while the Konoha T.M. performed a complementary sequence centered on the web anchor. The dimensional window contracted smoothly rather than collapsing violently, the carefully orchestrated energies on both sides ensuring clean separation rather than catastrophic breach. As the connection narrowed to a pinpoint, Naruto caught a final glimpse of Hinata, her expression conveying determination, concern, and something deeper that resonated with his own complex emotions. Then the connection closed completely, reality sealing itself with barely a ripple to mark where the dimensional window had existed. The abandoned hospital returned to stillness, moonlight casting shadows through empty windows as if nothing extraordinary had occurred within its walls. Clean severance, Peter confirmed after checking his instruments. No residual dimensional instability detected. Well executed, everyone. Naruto stared at the empty space where the connection had been, the golden red patterns beneath his skin gradually fading to their normal dormant state. The encounter with Morlun and the revelations about his Uzumaki heritage swirled in his consciousness, pieces of a cosmic puzzle still incomplete but beginning to form a recognizable pattern. So, Jessica said into the contemplative silence, an interdimensional vampire arranged the destruction of your ancestral homeland to prevent them from interfering with his feeding habits. And now he's specifically targeting you as some kind of ultimate cosmic meal. Just another Tuesday for spider people. Miles shot her a reproachful look. Maybe not the best time for gallows humor. On the contrary, Naruto replied, surprising himself with a small smile. It helps put things in perspective. Compared to some of the threats I've faced, Morlun is just another power hungry immortal with delusions of grandeur. Peter raised an eyebrow. Having faced him multiple times, I wouldn't underestimate the threat he represents. Morlun has killed spider totems across countless dimensions, including me in at least one reality. I'm not underestimating him, Naruto clarified. I'm refusing to be intimidated by him. There's a difference. He looked back at the empty SP. Ace where the dimensional window had been, determination replacing shock and anger. More importantly, we now have confirmed communication methods between dimensions. We've identified the web anchor as a stable reference point, and we know much more about my connection to the web of life and its purpose. We also know Morlun can track that connection across dimensions, Jessica pointed out pragmatically. And that he's specifically targeting you as what he called, the Totem of Totems. Which suggests your power significantly exceeds that of standard spider totems, Miles added, scientific curiosity evident in his tone. The energy readings during your interaction with the web anchor were unlike anything in Peter's database. Naruto nodded, accepting these observations without pride or concern. The spider sage isn't just connected to the web, according to the scrolls, he embodies a fundamental aspect of it. I'm still learning what that means practically. It means you're at the center of something much bigger than dimensional travel between two worlds, Peter concluded, already packing his equipment with practiced efficiency. The web of life connects all realities where spider totems exist. If you truly are its living embodiment in human form. He left the implication hanging, but Naruto understood perfectly. His awakening as the spider sage represented more than personal transformation or even interdimensional crisis. It signaled a fundamental shift in the cosmic balance maintained by the web itself. One problem at a time, he said, channeling Shikamaru's practical approach to overwhelming situations. First, we continue developing stable communication methods. Then we work on controlled transportation. After that, we deal with Morlun and whatever larger cosmic drama is unfolding. Jessica laughed, the sound surprisingly warm. I like your style, Spider Sage. Direct and unfazed by cosmic horror. As they gathered their equipment and prepared to leave Roosevelt Island, Naruto found his thoughts returning to Hinata and her evolved Byakugan. The ancient scrolls describing their complementary abilities suggested a connection deeper than chance or coincidence, as if the web itself had arranged their paths to intersect at precisely this moment in cosmic history. The eyes that see beyond seeing, he murmured to himself, recalling the phrase from the scrolls. What other connections existed that he hadn't yet recognized? What pattern was forming around him that only Hinata's evolved perception could fully discern? The golden red lines beneath his skin pulsed gently, as if acknowledging the questions without providing answers. For now, at least, the web seemed content to reveal its mysteries gradually, one cosmic thread at a time. As the team departed Roosevelt Island, none of them noticed the subtle distortion remaining where the dimensional window had been. A barely perceptible thinning in reality's fabric, invisible to normal perception but slowly, persistently expanding with each passing hour. The barriers between worlds continued weakening, just as Morlun had claimed, following a pattern established long before any of them existed. A pattern only the Spider Sage could ultimately address. Chapter 2 End Chapter 3, The Spider and the Fox. Rain pelted the abandoned clock tower with rhythmic intensity, transforming Manhattan's SKY line into a watercolor painting of blurred lights and reflective surfaces. Naruto sat cross-legged near the massive clock face, golden red energy patterns beneath his skin pulsing in harmony with the timepiece's mechanical heartbeat. 3 weeks had passed since the Roosevelt Island encounter, each day bringing new discoveries about his evolving abilities and the cosmic web connecting dimensions. Your meditation technique has improved, Peter observed, entering the space with the deliberate noise he always made to avoid startling enhanced individuals. The energy harmonics are stabilizing at a much deeper level. Naruto opened his eyes, the faint amber glow fading as he returned to normal awareness. Sage training with the toads taught me to connect with natural energy. This isn't so different, just on a much larger scale. Peter approached the workstation where multiple screens displayed data from their ongoing dimensional research. In the weeks since Morland's appearance, they had established regular communication with Konoha through controlled dimensional windows, brief, stable connections that allowed information exchange without risking further incursions. The latest ready NGS from the Uzushio web anchor are promising, Peter noted, reviewing data transmitted during the morning's connection. Your friends have made impressive progress reactivating the ancient systems. Hinata's Byakugan gives them significant advantages, Naruto replied, joining him at the workstation. She can perceive the underlying structure of the anchor in ways even the original Uzumaki clan couldn't. The mention of his clan, his family, still triggered complex emotions. Learning that the Uzumaki had been dimensional guardians for millennia, that their destruction had been deliberately orchestrated by Morland's machinations, added layers of purpose and pain to his heritage. Speaking of advantages, Peter continued, pulling up a different data set, your connection to the Nine-Tails Sea continues to show unique properties when combined with your web energies. The harmonic resonance creates energy signatures unlike anything in our records. Naruto nodded, studying the colorful wave 4M patterns representing his combined energy output. Kurama's been unusually cooperative lately. I think he's personally offended that Morland manipulated events leading to the Uzumaki clan's destruction. I merely recognize a worthy adversary when I encounter one. Kurama's voice rumbled through their shared mindscape. This inheritor has existed since before my creation. His kind hunted he old ones across dimensions long before humans evolved consciousness. Old ones? Naruto questioned internally. Ancient entities that once moved freely between dimensions, the fox explained with unusual patience. Some became what your world calls the tailed beasts. Others evolved differently in other realities. The web of life was originally created as a boundary system, not just co-nexting worlds but establishing rules governing travel between them. Naruto relayed this information to Peter, whose expression shifted from scientific curiosity to deep concern. That change some fundamental assumptions about the nature of the multiverse, the scientist said slowly. We've always understood the web as primarily a connection point for spider totems, not a cosmic regulatory system. According to Kurama, it's both, Naruto explained. The spider totems are just one manifestation of its broader purpose, maintaining balance between dimensions that would otherwise collapse into each other. Peter began typing rapidly, correlating this new information with existing data. That would explain why dimensional incursions have been increasing across all monitored realities. If the web was designed as a regulatory system and that system is now experiencing disruption, the barriers between worlds are weakening naturally, Naruto quoted Morland's words from their encounter. He wasn't lying about that part. A sudden alert from Peter's security system interrupted their discussion. Multiple screens shifted to display external camera feeds, showing a figure in a sleek black and white costume moving with impossible speed and precision across nearby rooftops, heading directly toward the clock tower. Not one of ours, Peter noted, immediately shifting into alert mode. Signature reads as spider totem but doesn't match any in our database. Naruto was already moving, golden red energy patterns brightening as he extended his awareness through the web. The roaching figure registered immediately, a powerful connection to the web of life, chaotic and somewhat unstable, but definitely a spider totem. Not hostile, he reported with certainty. Desperate, frightened, determined. Peter relaxed marginally but maintained readiness as the figure reached their location. Rather than attempting to breach their considerable security, she, definitely female ed on the costume's design, perched on an adjacent building, deliberately visible to their external cameras. That's unexpected, Peter commented, studying the feed with increasing interest. She's making no attempt to conceal herself or her abilities. The figure raised her hands in the universal gesture of peaceful intent, then removed her mask to reveal an Asian woman in her early 20s. Even through the camera feed, Naruto could see the intensity in her eyes, a haunted determination he recognized from his own reflections. "I know you're in there," she called, voice carrying clearly despite the rain and distance. "I can sense you, the anomaly in the web. The one they call the Spider Sage." Peter glanced at Naruto questioningly. "Friend of yours from back home." "Never seen her before," Naruto replied, already moving toward the exterior access. "But her connection to the web feels resonant somehow. Like it's harmonizing with mine." "Careful," Peter cautioned. "After Morlun, we can't dismiss the possibility of more sophisticated traps." Naruto acknowledged the warning with a nod before stepping onto the narrow ledge outside the clock face. Rain immediately drenched him, cold droplets tracing paths through the golden red patterns visible beneath his skin. The woman's eyes widened at his appearance, not with fear but with something closer to reverence. "You exist," she breathed, voice barely audible across the gap between buildings. "The rumors are true. Who are you?" Naruto called, maintaining a neutral stance despite his curiosity. "Cindy Moon," she replied without hesitation. "Known as Silk in some circles. I need your help, Spider Sage. I've been trapped between dimensions for 5 years, and you're the only one who might understand what that means." The Uzushio Nexus hummed with ancient power as Hinata directed chakra through pathways unseen for generations. Concentric circles carved into the chamber floor glowed with increasing intensity. As the web anchor responded to her evolved Byakugan, systems awakening after decades of dormancy. "Connection pathways stabilizing at 68% capacity," she reported, hands moving through. "Specialized formations developed specifically for this work. The primary matrix is accepting recalibration parameters." Gwen observed from nearby, fascination evident despite her professional demeanor. 3 weeks of collaboration had transformed their initial wariness into genuine respect, the Dimension Traveler recognizing Hinata's unique abilities while Hinata valued Gwen's practical experience with interdimensional phenomena. "The energy harmonics are approaching synchronization with Earth-65's baseline frequency," Gwen confirmed, studying readings on equipment merged from both worlds' technologies. "We might achieve stable communication without Naruto's direct involvement for the first time." Around them, the ancient chamber continued revealing its secrets. The Uzushio expedition had discovered far more than just the web anchor. The underground complex extended throughout the ruined island, a vast network of laboratories, libraries, and training facilities dedicated to dimensional research and monitoring. Much remained damaged from the attack that destroyed the surface structures, but the most critical systems had been protected by seals keyed to Uzumaki bloodlines. Shikamaru entered the chamber, expression thoughtful as he reviewed documentation recovered from a recently unsealed archive. "The historical records are filling some significant gaps in our understanding," he reported. The Uzumaki clan wasn't just monitoring dimensional boundaries, they were actively regulating them. According to these records, they prevented at least 12 major incursions during the clan's history. "From the inheritors?" Gwen asked, looking up from her work. "Some," Shikamaru confirmed. "Others from entities described only as the drifters, apparently beings that exist between dimensions rather than within them. The records describe them as reality parasites that feed on the energy created when dimensions bleed together." Hinata absorbed this information while maintaining her focus on the web anchor's calibration. Her evolved Byakugan perceived layers of reality invisible to others, the complex energy patterns flowing through the ancient device, the dimensional thinning surrounding the Uzushio Nexus, and the distinctive resonance created by her own connection to the web of life. This connection remained something she discussed little with the others. Unlike Naruto's dramatic awakening as the Spider Sage, her evolution had been subtle, a gradual expansion of perception rather than manifestation of new abilities. The ancient scrolls referred to her role as the eyes that see beyond seeing, but offered little concrete explanation of what this meant beyond serving as complement to the sage's awareness. "Synchronization approaching optimal parameters," she announced as the web anchor's core crystal pulsed with steadily brightening light. "Initiating communication protocol." The anchor responded immediately, concentric rings rotating in alternating directions as energy coalesced at the chamber's center. Unlike previous attempts requiring Naruto's direct connection, this communication window formed through Hinata's perception guiding the ancient device. Her evolved Byakugan serving as both map and compass through dimensional barriers. A circular opening appeared above the anchor's central platform, not a physical breach but a window between worlds. Stable and contained within the anchor's regulatory field. Through this opening, the interior of the New York clock tower materialized with perfect clarity, Peter Parker visible at his workstation. Connection established, Hinata confirmed, maintaining the precise chakra flow necessary for stability. Visual and audio synchronization at acceptable parameters. Peter looked up, surprise EV'd. NT before professional interest took over. Konoha team, this is unexpected. Our scheduled communication window isn't for another 6 hours. We've achieved independent synchronization through the web anchor, Shikamaru explained. Approaching the dimensional window, Hinata's perception allows direct calibration without requiring Naruto's connection from your side. Peter's expression shifted to genuine excitement. That's a significant breakthrough. The energy requirements for maintaining dimensional windows have been our biggest limitation. If you can establish connections independently. Where is Naruto? Hinata interrupted, noticing his absence with both normal and enhanced perception. Ah, Peter hesitated briefly. We've had an unexpected development. A new spider totem app appeared at our location approximately 40 minutes ago, a woman calling herself Silk. She specifically requested the Spider Sage's assistance with a dimensional problem. Gwen moved into view of the dimensional window, concern evident in her posture. Silk, Cindy Moon, she's supposed to be contained in a specialized bunker designed by Ezekiel Sims. Was contained, Peter corrected. According to her, the weakening dimensional barriers affected the bunker's specialized shielding. She escaped 3 days ago and has been tracking the dimensional anomaly she sensed in the web, which led her directly to Naruto. Something in his tone alerted Hinata to unstated concerns. You don't fully trust her, she observed. Peter sighed, running a hand through his hair in a gesture of frustration. Sin. Dai's story checks out as far as we can verify. The bunker was indeed breached, and her energy signature matches our records. But her connection to the web shows unusual properties, similar to the instability we observed during Morland's appearance. She's been exposed to something interdimensional, Gwen theorized, scientific mind immediately analyzing possibilities. Where are they now? Naruto took her to Roosevelt Island to investigate the residual energy signature from our previous connection attempt, Peter explained. His exact words were, she needs to see where dimensions connect not to rally if she's going to understand what's happening to her. Hinata maintained outward composure despite a subtle tightening in her chest. Her evolved perception had revealed many things about Naruto's connection to others, including emotional resonances that manifested as distinctive energy patterns. When speaking with Gwen, these patterns showed mutual respect tinged with wary attraction. With Peter and Miles, genuine friendship and camaraderie, but this new spider totem represented an unknown variable in an already complex equation. We should establish direct communication with Naruto, Shikamaru decided, practical as always. If this Cindy Moon has information about dimensional instabilities, we need to coordinate our research efforts. Agreed, Peter nodded. I can redirect our communication signal to portable receivers. Give me 10 minutes to recalibrate the frequency and... He stopped mid-sentence, attention shifting to something off-screen. The others followed his gaze as Naruto entered the visible area of the clock tower, accompanied by a woman in a black and white costume with distinctive web-patterned designs. Her mask was removed, revealing striking Asian features, currently set in an expression of controlled anxiety. Perfect timing, Peter commented as they approached. The Konoha team has established independent communication through the web anchor. Naruto's expression brightened immediately, golden red patterns beneath his skin pulsing with increased luminosity. Hinata, you did it. The simple recognition and obvious pride in his voice eased the tightness in Hinata's chest. Even across dimensions, his faith in her abilities remained unwavering. The anchor responded to calibration parameters based on your energy signature, she explained, maintaining the precise chakra flow sustaining the connection. We can establish communication windows independently now, though they remain limited in duration without your direct involvement. That's incredible progress, Naruto replied, genuine admiration evident in his tone. His attention shifted to the woman beside him. This is Cindy Moon. She has first-hand experience with interdimensional containment that might help us understand what's happening to the barriers between worlds. Cindy approached the dimensional window cautiously, studying the Konoha team with analytical intensity. Your energy signatures are unlike anything I've encountered, she observed. Similar to the spider sages but with fundamental differences in the underlying structure. Chakra-based rather than radiation-based origins, Gwen explained. Having discussed these differences extensively during her time in Konoha, their dimension developed energy manipulation along biological pathways rather than external catalysts. Cindy nodded, processing this information with visible effort. That explains some anomalies in my readings. When I escaped the bunker, I detected multiple new frequencies in the web, actions that shouldn't exist based on my understanding of interdimensional physics. Tell them what you told me about your containment, Naruto prompted gently. The woman's expression tightened momentarily before she composed herself. I was kept in a specialized bunker for 5 years, supposedly for my protection from the inheritors. The facility included technology designed to mask my connection to the web of life, rendering me effectively invisible to dimensional predators. Ezekiel Sim's work, Peter interjected for the Konoha team's benefit. A wealthy industrialist with extensive knowledge of the web of life and spider totems. His intentions remain questionable. 3 days ago, the containment systems experienced catastrophic failure, Cindy continued. Not from external attack or mechanical breakdown, but from what Ezekiel called fundamental dimensional recalibration. The barriers between realities shifted somehow, rendering his shielding technology ineffective. Hikamaru's expression sharpened with interest. This aligns with Moreland's claim that the barriers between worlds are weakening naturally. If specialized containment technology designed specifically for interdimensional shielding is failing. It's happening everywhere, Naruto confirmed grimly. Roosevelt Island shows significantly increased dimensional thinning compared to our last visit. The residual energy signature has expanded by approximately 17%. Similar phenomena are appearing throughout Konoha, Hinata added, Byakugan perceiving beyond the chamber's physical boundaries. My evolved vision detects at least 7 distinct locations where reality appears thinner than normal parameters. Cindy looked between them with growing concern. Then it's worse than I feared. When the bunker failed, I initially assumed localized sabotage. But if multiple dimensions are experiencing simultaneous boundary deterioration, it's systemic, Peter concluded, already typing rapidly on his keyboard. A fundamental change in the multiverse's structural integrity. But why now? Gwen questioned, the scientist in her seeking causality. What triggered these changes after millennia of relative stability? All eyes turned to Naruto, the implication clear even if unspoken. His awakening as the Spider Sage had coincided precisely with the acceleration of dimensional instability. Not coincidence. Kurama rumbled within Naruto's consciousness, his voice audible to everyone present as crimson chakra manifested around Naruto's form. Causality flows both directions in this case. The Spider Sage awakens because the barriers weaken, and the barriers weaken because the sage is needed. The fox's direct communication startled everyone except Naruto, who had grown accustomed to Kurama's occasional interjections when dimensional matters were discussed. The Nine Tails speaks directly now, Shikamaru questioned, recovering first from the surprise. Kurama, Naruto corrected automatically. And yes, our cooperation has evolved significantly since my connection to the web activated. He has perspectives on dimensional boundaries that span millennia. Before the hidden villages existed, Kurama continued, manifesting a translucent fox head above Naruto's shoulder. Before humans harnessed chakra, the dimensional boundaries were maintained by entities you would consider gods. As humanity evolved consciousness, these entities withdrew from direct intervention, creating systems that humans could maintain, like the web of life and its totems. The Spider Council scrolls mention this transition, Hinata confirmed, recalling specific patterns from the ancient texts. They describe it as the great transfer of guardianship, when humans first assumed responsibility for dimensional stability. And the Uzumaki clan were among the first human guardians, Shikamaru added, connecting historical fragments. Their specialized chakra and Seilin G techniques made them uniquely suited for this role. Cindy had been observing this exchange with increasing fascination. In my dimension, similar roles were filled by organizations like the Mystic Order of Madame Web and the Technological Monitoring Systems of Reed Richards. Different methods but serving the same fundamental purpose, maintaining separation between realities that could destroy each other if fully merged. So what's changed? Peter asked the crucial question. Why are these systems failing simultaneously across multiple dimensions? Kurama's manifestation grew more defined, crimson eyes gleaming with ancient knowledge. The cycle repeats. Just as cosmic guardianship transferred from gods to humans, another transition approaches. The existing systems no longer suffice for maintaining separation between dimensions that grow increasingly complex and numerous. And that's where the Spider Sage comes in, Naruto concluded, intuitive understanding flowing through his connection to the web. Not just as another guardian but as an adaptation. A new method of maintaining dimensional stability. The golden red patterns beneath his skin brightened as he spoke, spreading visibly across his body in complex geometric arrangements that mirrored the web anchor's concentric circles. For a moment, Hinata's Byakugan perceived something beyond physical form, Naruto's essence extending through the dimensional window and connecting directly with the ancient device, two aspects of the same cosmic system recognizing each other across realities. This is why Morlun wants you specifically, Cindy realized. Scientific detachment momentarily overtaken by genuine awe. You're not just a powerful spider totem. You're a fundamental evolution in how the multiverse maintains itself. The implication hung in the charged air between dimensions. Naruto's existence represented cosmic significance beyond personal destiny or even the fate of individual worlds. His awakening, as the Spider Sage signaled a transition point in the multiverse's ongoing evolution. Before anyone could fully process these implications, alarms blared simultaneously in both locations. In the clock tower, Peter's monitoring systems flashed with urgent notifications. In the Uzushio Nexus, the web anchor's crystal core pulsed with irregular patterns as secondary systems activated automatically. Multiple dimensional breaches detected, Peter announced, screens displaying data from across New York City. 7 distinct locations showing critical boundary failures. Similar phenomena here, Shikamaru reported, reviewing readings from sensors they'd placed throughout Fire Country. 5 confirmed breaches in the Konoha region, 2 more approaching critical thresholds. Hinata's Byakugan perceived beyond physical limitations. Her evolved vision tracking dimensional disruptions across vast distances. The breaches appear synchronized, identical energy signatures manifesting simultaneously in both dimensions. Coordinated attack, Gwen concluded grimly. Has to be the inheritors. This matches their typical invasion pattern from previous incursions. Naruto's expression hardened with determination. We need to split up. Secure the breaches before anything hostile comes through. Cindy, you're with me. Your experience with interdimensional phenomena will be valuable. Peter, Cord, innate response teams for the remaining locations. Already on it, Peter confirmed, sending alerts to other spider totems across the city. Jessica and Miles are responding to the Brooklyn breach. I'll take Manhattan Center. Through the dimensional window, Shikamaru assumed similar command of the Konoha response. Kakashi is coordinating with Anbu teams for the northern breaches. Gwen, you and Hinata take the Nexus defenses. I'll join Sakura at the southern perimeter. As both teams mobilized with practiced efficiency, Hinata maintained the communication window despite the increasing strain. Her evolved Byakugan perceived something the monitoring systems hadn't detected. Subtle connections between the seemingly random breach locations, forming geometric patterns identical in both dimensions. Wait, she called, halting preparations momentarily. The breaches aren't random. They form precise patterns, identical on both sides of the dimensional barrier. Naruto paused, golden red Urgi's brightening as he extended his awareness through the web. She's right. I can feel it now. The breaches create a synchronized resonance pattern. They're not individual incursions. They're components of something larger. Peter finished, mathematical mind immediately grasping the implication. If identical breach patterns manifest in parallel dimensions, they could be establishing Table corridors rather than temporary openings, Cindy completed the thought, her specialized knowledge immediately relevant. Creating permanent connections between specific locations across dimensions. The realization transformed their understanding of the threat, not merely an invasion but a fundamental restructuring of reality itself. If successful, the synchronized breaches would permanently link locations across dimensions, rendering existing boundary systems obsolete. We need to coordinate our responses, Naruto decided instantly. Each breach needs to be addressed simultaneously on both sides of the dimensional barrier. Hinata, can you maintain communication between our teams? She nodded, already modifying her approach to the web anchor. I can establish multiple smaller windows rather than one large connection. It will require precise distribution of my perception, but the anchor will support the configuration. Do it, Shikamaru authorized. Priority on tactical communication between response teams. As Hinata recalibrated the ancient device, Naruto turned to Cindy with focused intensity. The Roosevelt Island breach will be most critical. It's where dimensional thinning was already occurring naturally. If that location becomes permanently connected to the Uzushio nexus, the strategic implications would be severe, she agreed, immediately understanding. Both locations are natural weak points in dimensional barriers. Establishing permanent connection between them could accelerate boundary deterioration exponentially. Their eyes met with shared resolve. Two spider totems from different dimensions, united by common purpose despite having met mere hours ago. Something passed between them in that moment, recognition of shared experience that transcended normal acquaintance. Both had been shaped by isolation and extraordinary circumstances, both understood the burden of abilities that separated them from ordinary existence. Be careful, Hinata's voice interrupted this silent communication, her tone professional despite the personal concern evident to those who knew her well. The Roosevelt Island breach shows unusual energy fluctuations. Summit, hing about its formation differs from the others. Naruto nodded, attention returning to the dimensional window where Hinata's form glowed with the effort of maintaining communication. We will establish the secondary connections as quickly as possible. We'll need coordinated response to contain these breaches effectively. As teams dispersed to address multiple crises simultaneously, the dimensional window contracted. Focusing now solely on communication between Naruto and Hinata. For a moment, professional urgency yielded to personal connection, his golden red energy patterns resonating with the precise chakra flowing through her evolved Byakugan. Your eyes, he observed quietly. They've changed again. Hinata blinked in surprise, unaware of any visible transformation. Changed how? The pupils, he explained. Perception extending beyond normal vision. There's a pattern forming within them, like the web anchor's concentric circles, but more organic. Natural. She had no mirror to confirm this observation, but could feel the difference in her perception, expanding awareness that somehow incorporated aspects of Naruto's connection to the web. The ancient scrolls had described their abilities as complementary, but this suggested something deeper, a synchronization occurring at fundamental levels. Be safe, she said simply, emotion contained within professional composure. His smile conveyed understanding beyond words. Always. We'll reconnect when the breaches are contained. As the dimensional window contracted to maintain minimum connection while Hinata established the secondary communication links. Naruto turned to Cindy with renewed focus. Roosevelt Island. Now. They moved with synchronized precision, exiting the clock tower and launching into the rain-soaked Manhattan skyline. Golden red energy threads extended from Naruto's hands while Cindy produced organic webbing from her fingertips, different methods achieving identical results as they swung between skyscrapers with fluid grace. Your webbing, Naruto observed as they traversed the urban canyons at breathtaking speed. It's organic like mine, not mechanical like Peter's or Gwen's. Cindy nodded without breaking rhythm. Side effect of being bitten by the same spider that created Spider-Man, then spending 5 years in specialized containment. My abilities evolved differently, more primal, less controlled, but potentially more directly connected to the web of life. This explained the resonance Naruto had sensed when they first met. Her connection to the web operated through similar principles to his own, though arising from entirely different origins. Where his connection flowed through chakra pathways enhanced by Kurama's presence, hers manifested through biological adaptatio. NS triggered by the radioactive spider bite. How much did Ezekiel tell you about the web of life during your containment? He asked as they approached the Queensboro Bridge connecting Manhattan to Roosevelt Island. Enough to understand its basic structure, she replied, voice tight with complex emotions. Not enough to comprehend my place within it. He controlled information carefully, always emphasizing threats rather than possibilities, limitations rather than potential. The psychological impact of such prolonged containment was evident beneath her professional demeanor, hypervigilance, controlled anxiety. Trust issues carefully masked by analytical focus. Naruto recognized these patterns from his own childhood isolation, though her experience had been more absolute and sustained. The web is more than Ezekiel described, he offered as they crossed the bridge at its highest point, rain pelting them with increasing intensity. It's not just connection between spider totems or even between dimensions. It's alive somehow, conscious on a level we can barely comprehend. Cindy considered this perspective thoughtfully. That aligns with certain experiences I had during meditation exercises. Moments when the web seemed to respond to emotional states rather than just physical actions. They reached Roosevelt Island, immediately detecting the dimensional breach near the Abon Doan smallpox hospital where their previous connection attempt had occurred. Unlike the controlled window they'd established, this breach manifested as a violent tear in reality, jagged edges pulsing with unstable energy as it expanded steadily outward. Definitely artificial, Cindy assessed, analyzing the breach's formation with professional detachment. Forced open rather than naturally occurring. See the energy dispersion pattern. Classic inheritor manipulation. They're essentially picking the dimensional lock rather than breaking down the door. Naruto extended his awareness through the web. Golden red patterns beneath his skin brightening as he connected with the breach's underlying structure. I can feel the Uzushio nexus on the other side. This breach connects directly to the chamber housing the web anchor. Strategic targeting, Cindy noted grimly. If they control both nexus points, they could potentially override existing boundary systems across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Before they could develop a containment strategy, the breach pulsed violently, 3 rapid flashes of energy that momentarily illuminated the rain-soaked ruins around them. Through this destabilized opening emerged a figure unlike any Naruto had encountered previously, feminine in form but with distinctly inhuman characteristics. Where Morlun had maintained aristocratic human appearance despite his predatory nature, this entity embraced otherworldly aesthetics. Her skin shimmered with iridescent patterns resembling spider's silk, eyes multiplied across an otherwise humanoid face, limb. BS too long and jointed in places human anatomy didn't allow. She moved with liquid grace that defied physical limitations, each motion somehow occurring slightly before the muscles initiated it. Spider Sage, she greeted. Voice musical yet disturbing, like wind through crystalline structures never meant for human ears. I am Verna of the Inheritor bloodline. We meet at last. Cindy shifted immediately into combat stance. Organic webbing gathered at her fingertips. Verna specializes in hunting spider totems with precognitive abilities, she warned quietly. Her own temporal perception extends approximately 2.3 seconds into the future, allowing her to counter moves before they're initiated. The Inheritor smiled, too many teeth arranged with mathematical precision. Your knowledge is impressive, little Silk. 5 years in containment yet you've studied your predators thoroughly. Her attention returned to Naruto, head tilting with inhuman curiosity. But the Spider Sage remains something of a mystery even to us. A totem without radiation origin, connected directly to the Great Web's foundational structure rather than merely drawing power through it. Naruto maintained neutral positioning while gathering amber-black energy, the combined power of Kurama's chakra and his web connection. You're trespassing across dimensional boundaries, Inheritor. These breaches violate natural law. Verna laughed, the sound like shattering glass. Natural law. The boundaries between dimensions are artificial constructs, Spider Sage, imposed by entities that feared the natural state of existence. We Inheritors remember when reality flowed freely between worlds, when the Great Web served as highway rather than barrier. Her statement aligned disturbingly with information from the Spider Council scrolls, which described an ancient period before dimensional separation when entities moved freely between realities. The implications troubled Naruto deeply. Were the Inheritors merely predators? Or did they represent some earlier cosmic order now considered taboo? Don't be deceived by partial truths, Kurama warned internally. The separation of dimensions was necessary precisely because entities like the Inheritors abused the connected multiverse, consuming entire realities rather than maintaining balance. Naruto nodded almost imperceptibly, accepting the fox's ancient wisdom. Whatever existed before, the current system of dimensional boundaries protects billions of lives across countless realities. Your synchronized breaches threaten that protection. Protection through isolation, Verna countered, circling with predatory grace. Through ignorance of greater cosmic truths. The Spider Sage should understand better than most. Your very existence bridges artificial divisions between worlds. Enough philosophy, Cindy interrupted, patience visibly exhausted. Why this specific pattern of breaches? What are the Inheritors planning? Verna's multiple eyes blinked in sequence, creating a disorienting visual rhythm. Clever Silk, always seeking patterns. The answer lies in basic dimensional physics, synchronized connection points creating resonance networks across parallel worlds. When properly aligned, she moved with sudden explosive speed, not toward them but toward the dimensional breach itself. Her elongated fingers plunged into the jagged opening, grasping something visible only through interdimensional perception, threads of reality itself, fundamental strands of the cosmic barrier. They allow this, she concluded, yanking violently. The breach expanded exponentially, reality tearing along predetermined fault lines. Through the widened opening, Naruto glimpsed the Uzushio Nexus, Hinata and Gwen visible as they defended against a similar attack from another Inheritor. The breach wasn't merely connecting dimensions but synchronizing them, overlapping specific locations across realities. Roosevelt Island and Uzushio are merging, Cindy realized with horror. She's collapsing the dimensional barriers between nexus points. Naruto reacted instantly, amber-black energy surging as he directed both Kurama's chakra and his web connection toward the breach. Golden-red threads extended from his body, weaving through the tear in reality to create a stabilizing lattice, not closing the breach but preventing its uncontrolled expansion. Fascinating adaptation, Verna observed, watching his efforts with scientific detachment despite her continued manipulation of dimensional threads. Your instinctive understanding of boundary mechanics exceeds theoretical projections. Morlin will be pleased. Your consumption will provide unprecedented insights along with sustenance. Cindy launched her attack while the Inheritor's attention focused on Naruto, organic webbing targeting the precise points where Verna's fingers connected with the dimensional threads. The specialized webbing contained properties developed specifically for interdimensional combat, temporarily disrupting the Inheritor's connection to the breach. Verna hissed with genuine pain, multiple eyes narrowing as she released the dimensional threads and turned toward Cindy. You've modified your webbing with frequency disruptors. Impressive adaptation for one so young. 5 years in containment provides ample time for research and development, Cindy replied. Already launching her next attack, a complex web pattern designed to entangle and immobilize. The Inheritor moved with her characteristic temporal advantage, evading maneuvers before they fully initiated. Yet her movements seemed less fluid than initially demonstrated, the disruptor webbing having temporary effect on her precognitive abilities. Naruto maintained focus on stabilizing the breach, black energy forming increasingly complex patterns throughout the tier. Through this connection, he established direct communication with Hinata on the other side, their complementary abilities reading a synchronized response across dimensions. The breaches are connecting in specific geometric patterns, her voice reached him through the stabilized section of the breach. All 7 Inker on points form a heptagonal array centered on the Nexus and Roosevelt Island. If completed, the pattern will create a self-sustaining dimensional overlay, merging specific locations while maintaining separation elsewhere. Naruto concluded, understanding flowing through his web connection, creating permanently connected territories across otherwise distinct dimensions. Precisely our intention, Verna confirmed. Still engaged in combat with Cindy but apparently able to track multiple conversations simultaneously. The natural state of the multiverse, distinct realities with controlled connection points rather than absolute separation. Cindy had maintained remarkable effectiveness against the Inheritor despite the latter's advantages, her 5 years of focused training evident in every precisely calculated movement. She fought not with the improvisational style characteristic of most spider totems but with methodical efficiency, each attack setting up subsequent maneuvers in extended combinations. The other breaches, Naruto called to her between defensive maneuvers. Are they similarly engaged? Coordinated reports confirm inheritor presence at all incursion points, she replied without breaking combat rhythm. Different family members at each location, all implementing identical dimensional manipulation. Through his connection to the partially stabilized breach, Naruto could see Hinata and Gwen defending the web anchor against another inheritor, this one masculine in form but with similar inhuman characteristics. Unlike Verna's liquid grace, this inheritor moved with mechanical precision, each action mathematically perfect in execution. Genix, Cindy identified, noticing the direction of Naruto's attention. The family scientist, his presence at the Ansho confirms their strategic objectives. He'll attempt to analyze and potentially replicate the ancient technology. The realization crystallized Naruto's understanding of the threat, not merely incursion but acquisition. The inheritors sought control of dimensional boundary technology, potentially to implement their vision of connected realities serving as their personal hunting grounds. We need to close all breaches simultaneously, he decided, already formulating strategy. Not just contain them individually. Impossible without the Spider Sage's direct intervention at each location, Verna commented. Still engaged with Cindy but clearly monitoring their conversation. Your power is singular, your presence limited. While you stabilize this breach, the others progress toward completion. Her confidence suggested knowledge of their limitations that exceeded mere observation. The inheritors had studied them thoroughly, planning this synchronized attack to exploit precisely the constraints they faced, particularly Naruto's inability to be physically present at multiple locations simultaneously. Or was he truly limited in that regard? Shadow clone jutsu, Kurama suggested within their shared mindscape. Your clones already carry your chakra signature. Combined with the web connection, they could potentially extend my presence to multiple locations simultaneously, Naruto completed the thought. Immediately recognizing the possibility. While maintaining the stabilizing energy through the primary breach, Naruto formed the familiar hand seal with deliberate focus. Shadow Clone Jutsu. The technique manifested differently than its standard implementation. 7 clones appearing simultaneously, each glowing with the amber-black energy of combined chakra and web connection. Unlike normal shadow clones limited to physical locations, these manifestations connected directly through the web itself, anchored in Naruto's consciousness but extending throughout the dimensional network. Impossible, Verna whispered, multiple eyes widening with genuine shock. Consciousness division across the Great Web requires evolutionary adaptations no human has achieved. I'm not exactly standard human, Naruto replied, a hint of his old confidence returning despite the dire circumstances. Through each clone, he could perceive the other breach locations simultaneously. Why? Experiencing multiple perspectives across both dimensions in perfect clarity. The web-enhanced clones responded to his directive instantly, each traveling through dimensional pathways to emerge at different breach locations. In Brooklyn, a clone appeared beside Jessica Drew as she battled another inheritor. In Manhattan Center, another materialized next to Peter. On the Konoha side, clones emerged at each corresponding breach point, joining the shinobi teams already engaged in containment efforts. Through these multiple perspectives, Naruto perceived the complete pattern for the first time. 7 breaches arranged in precise heptagonal formation across both dimensions, creating geometric resonance that gradually merged specific locations while maintaining separation elsewhere. The inheritor's plan became clear, establishing controlled hunting territories spanning multiple dimensions rather than completely collapsing the boundaries between worlds. Synchronized closure on my mark, He communicated through the clone network, each manifestation already implementing stabilization techniques at their respective locations. Disrupt the geometric pattern rather than simply sealing individual breaches. The original Naruto redirected his focus to the Roosevelt Island breach where Verna continued battling Cindy with increasing frustration. The inheritor clearly recognized the threat posed by Naruto's unexpected adaptation, her movements becoming more aggressive as she attempted to disrupt his concentration. Your consciousness cannot sustain such division, she hissed, disengaging from Cindy to launch a direct attack on Naruto himself. Even the most evolved totems experience synaptic collapse from multidimensional awareness. Her assessment would have been accurate for an Y-normal spider totem. Even the most experienced struggled with perceptual overload when connecting to multiple dimensional frequencies simultaneously. But Naruto's shinobi training, particularly his years of shadow clone experience, had prepared his consciousness for precisely this kind of division. "You're assuming normal human limitations," he replied, evading her attack while maintaining concentration on the breach network. "I've been using shadow clones since I was 12, my mind is structured for divided consciousness." Through the clone network, he confirmed all breach points had achieved stabilization parameters. Each manifestation had implemented the same amber-black energy lattice, creating synchronized containment across the entire heptagonal array. "Now," he commanded through the network. Each clone executed identical hand seals in perfect synchronization, channeling combined chakra and web energy through the stabilized breaches. Rather than attempting to close each breach individually, they disrupted the geometric resonance connecting them, essentially collapsing the pattern rather than its individual components. The effect rippled through dimensional space like a tone dropped in still water, concentric waves of energy flowing outward from each disruption point, interfering with the carefully calculated frequencies the inheritors had established. Where these waves intersected, the breaches began contracting naturally, reality reasserting normal boundaries as the artificial resonance dissolved. Verna screamed, a sound beyond human vocal range that shattered windows across Roosevelt Island. The dimensional threads she had manipulated recoiled violently, lashing out in chaotic patterns as their carefully established connections collapsed. "What have you done?" she demanded, genuine fear replacing predatory confidence. "The resonance network cannot be disrupted without complete recalibration." "Exactly," Cindy confirmed, understanding the strategy immediately. "By targeting the pattern rather than individual breaches, we've essentially reset the dimensional frequencies to natural parameters. Your synchronized connection points are no longer synchronized." Through the clone network, Naruto perceived similar reactions from inheritors at other breach locations, confusion and anger giving way to tactical withdrawal as their coordinated plan disintegrated. Without the geometric resonance connecting breach points, each incursion became isolated and considerably easier to contain individually. The Roosevelt Island breach contracted rapidly, dimensional energies realigning with natural parameters rather than the artificial configuration Verna had imposed. Through the narrowing opening, Naruto maintained visual connection with Hinata and Gwen. As they witnessed similar contraction of the Uzushio breach, Verna assessed the deteriorating situation with cold calculation, her initial shock replaced by strategic consideration. "Impressive adaptation, Spider Sage. Your evolutionary advantages exceed our projections." She backed toward the rapidly closing breach, multiple eyes blinking in that distinctive sequential pattern. "But this reprise NTS merely the first implementation of a much larger design. We have existed since the web's creation, patience is our defining characteristic." Before either Naruto or Cindy could respond, she slipped through the narrowing dimensional opening with liquid grace, returning to the Uzushio side where her fellow inheritor similarly retreated rather than continuing a losing battle. As the breach sealed itself, natural dimensional boundaries reasserting with visible relief, Naruto felt the clone network dissolve, each manifestation having completed its purpose and returning its experience to his consciousness. The influx of simultaneous perspectives momentarily overwhelmed even his conditioned mind, forcing him to one knee as he processed multiple battle scenarios across both dimensions. Cindy approached cautiously, professional demeanor softening with genuine concern. "Are you all right? That level of consciousness division would kill most spider totems." Naruto nodded, sorting through the composite memories as they integrated into his awareness. "Shadow clone feedback is familiar territory for me. Just more intense when combined with interdimensional perception." Through the dissolved clone network, he had witnessed the successful containment of all 7 breach points, each inheritor retreating rather than risking capture once their coordinated strategy collapsed. The immediate crisis had been averted. Yet something about Verna's parting statement suggested this represented merely opening moves in a much more complex conflict. "They'll try again," Cindy noted, reaching the same conclusion independently. This was too carefully planned, too strategically implemented to be their only attempt. "Yes," Naruto agreed, rising to his feet as the golden red patterns beneath his skin gradually returned to their dormant state. But we've gained critical information about their methods and objectives. And they've learned that interdimensional coordination works both ways. As the rain continued falling around them, transforming the abandoned hospital ruins into a glistening landscape of decayed grandeur, Naruto extended his awareness through the web once more, not to establish communication but to confirm the status of dimensional boundaries throughout both worlds. The natural resonance had largely reasserted itself, the artificial disruption fading like ripples in a pond gradually returning to stillness. Yet beneath this apparent restoration, subtle changes remained, microscopic thinning at specific locations, invisible to conventional monitoring but perceptible through his direct connection to the web itself. The barriers between dimensions hadn't been breached permanently, but they had been weakened in precise, calculated patterns. "They're playing a longer game than we initially assumed," he observed, sharing his perception with Cindy. This attack wasn't meant to succeed fully. It was a test of defensive capabilities and a preliminary weakening of specific boundary points. Cindy studied the patterns he revealed, her scientific mind immediately grasping strategic implications. They're establishing foundation work for something larger. These weakening points create an infrastructure for future operations, like placing supports before building a bridge. The imagery resonated with Naruto's intuitive understanding. The inheritors weren't simply attacking dimensional boundaries but systematically reconstructing them according to their own design. Today's synchronized breaches represented merely foundation work for a much more ambitious architectural project spanning multiple dimensions. "We need to get back to the clock tower," he decided, already moving toward the edge of the island. "Consolidate information from all teams and develop counter strategies before they implement the next phase." As they traversed the rain-soaked city back toward their headquarters, Naruto's thoughts returned repeatedly to the clone network experience, he unprecedented extension of consciousness across dimensional boundaries, perceiving multiple realities simultaneously through divided awareness. The technique had emerged instinctively, combining Shinobi training with web connection in ways neither system had previously achieved independently. Adaptation, evolution. The words echoed through his consciousness with resonant significance. The sage represented not merely a guardian role but an evolutionary response to changing cosmic conditions, just as the web itself had evolved over millennia to address new interdimensional challenges. And he wasn't evolving alone. Through the clone network, he had glimpsed Hinata's continued transformation, her evolved Byakugan perceiving dimensional structures with accuracy exceeding even the ancient web anchor's calibration systems. He had witnessed Gwen's fighting style incorporating chakra principles observed during her time in Konoha, creating hybrid techniques previously impossible in either world independently. Boundaries between systems were dissolving alongside boundaries between dimensions, not through catastrophic collapse but through purposeful integration, selective permeability replacing rigid separation. "You begin to understand, Kurama observed within their shared mindscape. Not destruction but transformation, not ending but evolution. The web is adapting," Naruto agreed internally, "using us as instruments of that adaptation. As it always has, the fox confirmed. The question remains whether this adaptation serves creation or destruction, evolution or consumption." The philosophical implications would require deeper contemplation once immediate tactical concerns had been addressed. For now, Naruto focused on reaching the clock tower. The other spider totems would be gathering to assess the coordinated attack and its implications. They arrived to find the headquarters already transforming into a war room, multiple screens displaying data from all breach locations. Spider totems from across the city reporting findings and observations as Peter coordinated information gathering with characteristic efficiency. Through a series of smaller dimensional windows Hinata had maintained despite the strain, corresponding activity occurred in the Uzushio Nexus, shinobi teams returning from their respective assignments, comparing notes on inheritor capabilities and tactics observed during the encounters. 7 confirmed inheritors, Miles was saying as Naruto and Cindy entered. 1 at each breach location, implementing identica L-dimensional manipulation techniques despite their individualized combat styles. Coordinated through Genix, Jessica added, nursing a wounded arm that already showed accelerated healing. maintained some kind of psychic network connecting family members across breach points. Peter acknowledged their arrival with a nod before continuing the tactical assessment. The heptagonal array API-RS designed specifically to create a self-sustaining dimensional overlay, essentially merging selected locations across otherwise separate realities. Strategic territories rather than complete convergence, Cindy confirmed. Joining the discussion seamlessly. Controlled hunting grounds spanning multiple dimensions while maintaining separation elsewhere. Through one of the dimensional windows. Shikamaru's voice contributed additional perspective. The locations targeted weren't random. Each corresponds to sites of historical significance in dimensional monitoring, places where boundary research or enforcement occurred previously. Quote, "They're systematically eliminating established defensive infrastructure," Naruto concluded, the pattern becoming clear. Weakening key locations that could PPOSE future incursions while simultaneously establishing their own alternative framework. The tactical implications shifted their understanding of the threat, not merely predatory attacks but straight GIC dismantling of existing dimensional safeguards. The inheritors weren't simply hunting spider totems, they were methodically reconstructing the fundamental architecture of interdimensional boundaries. So what's their endgame? Miles questioned, voicing the central concern. Complete dimensional convergence or controlled connectivity between worlds. Based on Verna's statements, the latter, Naruto replied, recounting his conversation with the inheritor during their confrontation. She specifically referenced the natural state of the multiverse's distinct realities with controlled connection points rather than absolute separation, which aligns with certain historical records, came Hinata's voice through her dedicated communication window. The Spider Council scrolls describe an ancient period of selective permeability, when dimensions remained distinct but permitted regulated travel between connected worlds. Before the inheritors abused that system and necessitated stricter separation, Peter added grimly. Historical accounts from Madame Web describe them consuming entire realities when boundaries permitted freer movement. The bigger picture emerged through this collaborative analysis, not simply a conflict between defenders and invaders but a fundamental disagreement about how dimensional boundaries should function. The existing system of rigid separation RSUS the inheritors, vision of controlled connectivity serving their predatory purposes. Where does the Spider Sage fit into this cosmic disagreement? Cindy asked the question directly, addressing Naruto with scientific curiosity rather than accusation. Your abilities specifically bridge dimensions in ways neither system fully encompasses. All attention turned to Naruto, the question crystallizing concerns that had developed since his awakening to these powers. If the web of life was evolving in response to changing cosmic conditions, what role did the Spider Sage serve in this transformation? Defender of existing boundaries or harbinger of new dimensional relationships? Both and neither. Kurama answered before Naruto could formulate his response, crimson energy manifesting AR. Naruto's form as the fox participated directly in the discussion. The Spider Sage represents balance rather than absolutes, neither complete separation nor unregulated connection, but dynamic equilibrium between worlds. The fox's philosophical perspective surprised everyone, particularly the shinobi observing through dimensional windows. Kurama had traditionally represented destructive power rather than cosmic wisdom, his participation in theoretical discussions marking significant evolution in his own nature. Dynamic equilibrium, Peter repeated thoughtfully. Selective permeability, governed by conscious regulation rather than rigid barriers or unrestricted access. A middle path, Hinata observed through her communication window, evolved Byakugan perceiving deeper implications in Kurama's statement. The Spider Sage is mediator between cosmic extremes rather than champion of either approach. The concept resonated with Naruto's intuitive understanding of his role, not merely guardian of existing systems but facilitator of necessary evolution, helping the multiverse adapt to changing conditions while preventing exploitation of new connectivity by predators like the inheritors. Before this philosophical discussion could develop further, alarms sounded from monitoring systems tracking dimensional stability throughout New York City. Peter immediately redirected attention to central displays where data indicated new disturbances, not breaches this time but subtle resonance patterns emerging at apparently random locations. Secondary effects from the synchronized attack, he assessed. analyzing incoming data with practiced efficiency. The heptagonal array may have failed, but it created harmonic disruptions throughout the dimensional boundary. Similar reports arrived through communication windows from Konoha, sensors detecting fluctuations in chakra fields surrounding the village, patterns matching those observed during previous dimensional thinning in Sidence but distributed more widely than before. The inheritors may have retreated, Jessica observed grimly, but they achieved significant progress toward their objectives despite our intervention. The dimensional barriers are substantially weaker than before their synchronized attack. Naruto extended his awareness through the web, golden red patterns brightening beneath his skin as he perceived beyond physical limitations. The damage was indeed substantial, microscopic fractures spreading throughout dimensional boundaries like cracks in stressed glass, creating vulnerability to future manipulation. We can't simply defend against individual breaches anymore, he concluded, sharing his perception with both teams simultaneously. The entire boundary system requires reinforcement, not just at specific weak points but throughout its fundamental structure. Is that even possible? Miles questioned, scientific mind immediately considering practical limitations. We're talking about cosmic architecture spanning infinite dimensions. Even with combined resources from both worlds. It's possible, Hinata interrupted, her evolved Byakugan perceiving possibilities invisible to conventional analysis. The web anchor contains specifications for a boundary reinforcement protocol, a method for strengthening dimensional barriers through synchronized activation of multiple nexus points. Through their dedicated communication window, Naruto could see her studying ancient mechanisms within the Uzushio device, perceiving operational principles beyond the technical knowledge of those who created it. Her evolved vision didn't merely observe but comprehended, understanding flowing directly from the patterns themselves into her consciousness. The protocol requires at least 3 active nexus points, she continued. Translating complex dimensional mathematics into practical requirements. Uzushio provides 1, but we would need to locate and activate at least 2 others to implement effective reinforcement. Earth-65 had multiple monitoring stations historically, Peter noted, already searching historical databases. The question is whether any remain operational after centuries of technological evolution. Roosevelt Island was one, Cindy contributed, her years of research during containment proving valuable. Ezekiel's records indicated it housed a monitoring study on disguised as medical quarantine facilities, hence the smallpox hospital cover story. That gives us 2, Naruto calculated. We need at least 1 more, preferably in a different dimensional NC range to provide comprehensive coverage. The tactical discussion continued with increasing technical detail, specialists from both worlds contributing expertise on dimensional mechanics, chakra theory, and historical monitoring systems. Throughout this collaborative problem-solving, Naruto found his attention repeatedly drawn to Cindy, her analytical precision complementing his intuitive understanding in ways that created natural synergy. She caught his observation during a brief lull in the discussion, raising a questioning eyebrow. Something wrong. Just the opposite, he replied honestly. Your containment experience provided exactly the specialized knowledge we need for this situation. 5 years of focused research on dimensional boundaries and inheritor tactics, it's almost as if you were preparing specifically for this crisis. Something shifted in her expression, professional detachment momentarily yielding to more personal vulnerability. Perhaps I was. The web works in patterns we rarely recognize until retrospectively. What seemed like imprisonment might have been preparation. The insight revealed deeper philosophical understanding beneath her scientific approach, spiritual awareness complementing technical knowledge in balanced perspective. This integration of seemingly opposed viewpoints reminded Naruto of his own evolving relationship with Kurama, ancient power harmonizing with human consciousness to create something greater than either could achieve independently. As tactical planning continued around them, a subtle connection formed between them, romantic but deeply personal nonetheless. Both had experienced profound isolation that transformed into unique perspective. Both understood the burden of abilities that separated them from normal existence. Both recognized patterns where others saw only chaos. Through the dimensional window, Hinata observed this developing connection with her evolved Byakugan, perceiving not just physical proximity, ity but resonance patterns forming between Naruto and Cindy's respective connections to the web of life. Rather than jealousy, she felt something closer to scientific curiosity mixed with spiritual understanding, recognition of cosmic patterns unfolding according to deeper purposes than personal preference. The third nexus point, she announced, interrupting her own observation to share critical information. According to the web anchor's historical records, a monitoring station was established in a location your dimension would identify as Wundagore Mountain in Eastern Europe. Peter's attention sharpened immediately. Wundagore has significant mystical and scientific history in our world. It's been associated with everything from ancient cults to advanced evolutionary experiments. Quote, "Perfect camouflage for dimensional monitoring technology," Jessica noted pragmatically. "Hide it among other unexplained phenomena to prevent specific identification. The mountain also has natural, electromagnetic properties that would enhance certain types of boundary reinforcement," Cindy added, her specialized knowledge again proving valuable. Ezekiel's records mentioned it as a location of interest for his containment research. With this third location identified, tactical planning shifted toward practical implementation, team assignments, equipment requirements, timeline coordination across dimensions. Throughout this increasingly technical discussion, the golden red patterns beneath Naruto's skin pulsed with steady rhythm, not reactive stress but controlled anticipation, as if the web itself approved this developing counter-strategy. The pieces assemble themselves, Kurama observed within their shared mindscape. Players moving into position according to patterns established long before any of us existed. "You sound almost fatalistic," Naruto replied internally, surprised by the fox's philosophical tone. Kurama's rumbling chuckle vibrated through their connection. "Not fatalism but recognition. Free will exists within larger patterns, Kit. The web doesn't control your choices. It creates conditions where certain choices become possible." The distinctio N was subtle but significant, cosmic influence rather than predetermined destiny. Each person in both headquarters contributed unique perspective and abilities, exercising individual agency while simultaneously fulfilling roles within a greater pattern none could fully perceive independently. As the planning session concluded with clear assignments and timelines established, teams began dispersing to implement preparatory measures for the boundary reinforcement protocol. Naruto found himself momentarily alone with Cindy as others focused on their respective tasks, creating brief opportunity for more personal conversation. "You haven't asked about going back," he observed quietly. "To the bunker or your previous life?" She considered the observation thoughtfully, no defensiveness in her response. "Perhaps because I recognize there's no back available. 5 years in isolation changed me fundamentally. The person who entered that bunker no longer exists." Her expression softened slightly. "Besides, current circumstances suggest my particular expertise is needed precisely where I am." Purpose beyond personal preference, Naruto nodded, understanding immediately. "I felt something similar when first learning about the Spider Sage role, recognizing that my life had been unconsciously preparing me for responsibilities I never anticipated." "Does it bother you?" she asked with genuine curiosity. "Learning that your development followed patterns established centuries before your birth." The question addressed concerns Naruto had contemplated extensively since discovering the ancient scrolls and his ancestral connection to dimensional guardianship. Did cosmic patterns undermine personal agency? Did predetermined roles diminish individual choice? Initially, he admitted honestly, it seemed to reduce my life to cosmic functionality rather than personal journey. But I've come to see it differently, not limitation but expanded significance. My choices remain my own, but they matter beyond personal consequences. Quote, Cindy nodded, understanding evident in her expression. Expanded context rather than diminished agency. The web doesn't control us, it connects our individual stories to something larger. The perspective resonated with Naruto's evolving understanding of his role, not puppet of cosmic forces but conscious participant in greater patterns, exercising free will within expanded awareness of interdimensional consequences. The Spider Sage represented not predetermined destiny but potential fully realized through personal choice. Their conversation paused as Peter approached with final coordination details for the upcoming mission. The moment of philosophical connection yielded to practical necessity, Yet something had shifted between them, mutual recognition. Established beyond professional collaboration or circumstantial alliance. As preparations accelerated around them, Naruto maintained awareness of the dimensional windows where Hinata coordinated parallel efforts in Konoha. Their gazes met briefly across realities, unspoken understanding flowing through their unique connection, recognition of evolving relationships and expanding awareness beyond traditional boundaries. The web of life continued weaving its pattern across dimensions, threads connecting individuals in configurations beyond conventional understanding. The Spider Sage stood at the center of this cosmic tapestry, neither controlling nor controlled but consciously participating in its ongoing evolution, helping the multiverse adapt to changing conditions while preserving its essential balance. One thread at a time, across dimensions beyond counting, the pattern continued unfolding. Chapter 3 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.